Chapter 1877. Nan Yuxing had already gone crazy. He had experienced too many things during this period of time, and it had long exceeded his tolerance. Previously, because his Yuan meridian was broken, he was disheartened and wanted to die. Later, his father finally found an expert to help him recover his Yuan meridian, and he even took the opportunity to successfully break through and become a supreme god. He was overjoyed. However, just as he was about to share this with Nan Yi, he heard the sad news that Nan Yi was already dead. Because the damage to her body was too severe, Nan Yifan directly chose to bury her. Nan Yuxing didn't even have time to take one last look at her. Nan Yi was his only sister, and the person he doted on the most. Now that she was suddenly gone, how could he accept it? Thus, he was filled with thoughts of revenge. Only by killing Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue could he dispel the hatred in his heart. As for Luo Yan's hesitation, he didn't care at all. He was already certain that Nan Yi had died in their hands, and no one would be able to change his mind no matter who came to persuade him. Rong Xiu's eyes were cold. Nan Yuxing, who do you think you are pointing a knife at? His voice was as cold and low as usual, but at this moment, it inexplicably carried a heavy pressure that was difficult to defy. Nan Yuxing instinctively looked at Rong Xiu. When he met those cold and deep phoenix eyes, his heart suddenly trembled. Intense uneasiness and fear almost uncontrollably surged from the depths of his heart. That was a sense of danger. But these emotions were quickly suppressed by him. Fear? What was there to fear? Today, he had brought several elders with him, and he only had one goal: to kill Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue and avenge Yi. Thinking of this, he smiled coldly. Rong Xiu, put away your airs as the chosen saint. This is Peach Blossom Cove, not your Yuntian Tower. Before he came, he had already asked around. This time, Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue came very low-key. Rong Xiu only brought one confidant with him, and although Chu Luiyue brought many people with her, they were all her former subordinates and weren't a threat. Rong Xiu was powerful, and Chu Luiyue wasn't to be underestimated, but 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. Now that they were facing each other, their chances of winning. This is indeed not the Yuntian Tower. But this is the Yu residence. How dare you? Without waiting for Rong Xiu to say anything, Chu Luiyue spoke first. Qi. The sharp blade cut through the void. She had already grasped Scarlet Heaven's sword tightly in her hand. Looking at Nan Yuxing's expression, there was no point in saying anything. The only solution was to solve this problem. Seeing Chu Luiyue draw her sword, many scenes from the god-slaying tomb surfaced in Nan Yuxing's mind. This woman's strength was much stronger than she appeared to be. Nan shook his head and frowned, trying to get rid of those messy thoughts. There was nothing to worry about. No matter how strong she was just a high god. How could she possibly be a match for these gods? Thinking of this, Nan Yuxing's confidence was boosted. An eye for an eye. Today, I will take revenge for Yi. Before he could finish his sentence, Nan made his move. The surrounding energy of heaven and earth started to gather towards him, and finally, it all flowed into the saber in his hand. His aura surged, and the force in his body was almost boiling. The sky quickly darkened. The full-force attack of a high god was not to be underestimated. Soul-breaking saber. As Nan shouted, the long saber in his hand slashed downwards. Along with a sharp whistling sound, a blood-red saber light flew out. Wherever it passed, the space collapsed inch by inch. On the ground, there was also a deep rut. The stone slabs cracked. Rong Xiu lifted his wrist and was about to make his move, but Luo Yan beat him to it and rushed towards him. At the same time, the 8 elders behind them also made their moves. The crowd moved according to their thoughts, and in the blink of an eye, they hovered in midair and surrounded Chu Luiyue and the rest, who were standing at the door. Nan had 10 people on his side. Although it was not as many as the entire Yu residence, they had more high gods. Everyone in the Yu residence was on high alert, and formed a human wall. However, compared to the high gods, they were still slightly inferior. The saber was about to reach. A violent wind with a biting cold murderous aura surged towards them. Chu Liuyue's sleeves were swept up by the wind. She frowned slightly, and her feet slightly staggered. Then, she bent her knees slightly and leaped up. She went straight towards Nane. Xing's saber light. Scarlet cloud sword. Chu Liyue slashed down with her sword. The two forces collided. Boom! Terrifying turbulence spread out in all directions. Master! 13 shouted anxiously, and subconsciously took half a step forward. Tsini glanced at him. 13 seemed to have sensed something, and immediately stopped and woke up. He could not go over. With his current strength, not only would he not be of any help, he would only cause trouble. The only thing he could do was to wait here and not cause trouble for his master. He looked anxiously at Tsini. Big brother, the only one who could help now was his big brother, Qi. A gust of cold wind suddenly attacked them from behind. Tsini's eyes turned cold, and he immediately turned around. With a wave of his sleeves, a tyrannical aura blocked the sneak attack outside. Sanson's eyes widened, and he was still in shock. Vice Leader Mo. What are you doing? He actually took advantage of the time when they were not paying attention to attack. Mo Yun suddenly sneered. I was wondering who it was. Rong Xiu, Shengguan Yu. I didn't expect you to come to me on your own accord. Digression, I won't trouble everyone to wait today. I'll update tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1878. If he could kill the two of them on the spot, not only would he be able to make up for what happened to Lan Qingfeng, but he would also be able to gain the favor of the sect leader and rise to the next level. His status would not be able to rise any further, but he would have plenty of opportunities and resources in other aspects. Mo Yun had only heard of the two of them before, but he did not expect that they would take the initiative to come to him. Sanson's heart sank when he heard Mo Yun's words. Mo Yun seemed to have the intention to kill Master and His Highness. But Ink Sword sect had no enmity with them, so why? Before he could figure it out, Mo Yun suddenly flew up. At the same time, a bamboo tube appeared in his hand. He pulled it hard without hesitation. Swoosh! A sharp sound pierced through the air. Boom! A firework suddenly exploded in the sky. The firework was the special totem of Ink Sword sect with two swords surrounding the moon. Sanson's eyes widened and he blurted out, "Oh no." He was summoning the entire Black Sword sect. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. In just a few breaths, the Yu mansion had become the target of everyone's attack. Although it was still daytime, the firework was still bright and dazzling. It stayed in the sky for a long time and did not dissipate. Sanson cursed in his heart. Why did Ink Sword sect come at this time? Mo Yun. We have never offended Ink Sword sect, so why are you hitting us when we are down? Sanson questioned sternly. Mo Yun looked at him from above. To be precise, he was looking at the group of people. Boss Sanson, you can't blame me for this. In the past 2 years, you have contributed a lot to Ink Sword sect. If you turn over a new leaf, I can still spare your life. After all, he could not bear to part with the treasures in the small space. Sanson spat when he heard that. Pfft! This Mo Yun is too shameless. He took so many of his things for nothing, and in the end, he still acted like he was giving alms. If it was not to earn some money for Master, he would not have to stay in Peach Blossom Dock and suffer Ink Sword sect's anger for so long. Now, Mo Yun turned his back on him and even planned to attack Master. He naturally did not have to endure it anymore. Mo Yun. Aren't you thinking too highly of yourself? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror and see what you look like now? I still haven't settled the score with you for robbing so many of my treasures. Now you want to bully my master? Do you really think I'm dead? Sanson was usually all smiles and rarely showed any displeasure to others, let alone speak vulgarities. At this moment, his sudden outburst shocked many people. Mo Yun was stupefied at first. Only after that did he react. Sanson was scolding him. His expression immediately became extremely ugly. 33. He's refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. Sanson sneered, one hand on her waist, the other pointed at Mo Yun, and scolded, Motherf asterisk cur, you don't even know my name. You still have the nerve to clamor here. I'm really giving you face. Mo Yun had never been pointed at and scolded like this before. For a moment, he actually couldn't think of any words to refute. He was so angry that his entire body trembled. You. He was so angry that he laughed. Good. Since you've said so, then today, my Black Sword sect will not show you any mercy. The death of 133 was indeed a heavy loss to them. But as long as they could take down Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu, the rest was not important. Swoosh swoosh. Just as the two sides were confronting each other, several people rushed out from the surroundings. They were the people who were in charge of secretly monitoring the Yu residents. Other than that, there were several figures rushing over from afar. They were also from the Black Sword sect. Just now, when Mo Yun sent out the signal, the people from the Black Sword sect immediately rushed over. Looking at the constantly gathering figures and the surging killing intent in the air, Nan Yuxing was first shocked, then he sneered. Shengguan Yu. Rong Xiu. Looks like your enemy is not only my Nan family. To be able to meet people who wanted to kill them in such a place, it could be seen that their arrogance had offended many people. Chu Luiyue knitted her brows slightly and quickly looked up. The people from the Black Sword sect were indeed rushing over. Mo Yun had made up his mind to make a move on them. He did not even care about 33 anymore. For a moment, Chu Luiyue's mind raced. She did not remember that she and Rong Xiu had offended the people from the Black Sword sect. They only knew about the existence of the Black Sword sect after coming to the Peach Blossom Dock. During this period of time, the Black Sword sect had frequently found trouble with 33, but they had endured it. Who knew that when Mo Yun heard their name, his attitude would suddenly change 180 degrees. No matter what, he wanted to take their lives. There was nothing to be afraid of if they were to face Nan Yuxing alone. Even if Nan Yuxing brought a few supreme gods with him this time, they might not lose. After all, the Yu residence was 33's territory. Moreover, they still had many trump cards in their hands. Once they fought, it was still unknown who would win and who would lose. But, now that the Black Sword sect was involved, things would be troublesome. Although the Black Sword sect had suffered heavy losses in the Azure Peak, they had a large number of people and did not care about these losses. The Black Sword sect was like an overlord in the Peach Blossom Dock. If they were determined to kill them all, the situation would not be optimistic. Although the people of the Yu residence were strong, they were definitely not a match for those people. Clang! Chu Luiyue waved her wrist and deflected Nan Yuxing's saber. Nan Yuxing's hand went numb and the saber in his hand almost fell from the impact. He was shocked and angry. The woman in front of him was clearly only a high god, but her sword just now was not much weaker than his. Nan Yuxing's face turned green and white. If he lost in this situation where he was sure to win, he would not have the face to continue living in this world. When he thought of Nan Yi's death, the anger in his chest surged even more crazily. All of you deserve to die. He shouted sternly and charged towards Chu Luiyue again. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered and she had already made a decision in her heart. She sidestepped and dodged the saber. Then, without any hesitation, she took a deep breath and turned around, heading towards a certain direction quickly. Her movements were extremely agile and her speed was far beyond everyone's expectations. Originally, the few elders of the Nan family wanted to go forward and block her, but before they could do so, that slender and exquisite figure had already passed through their encirclement. Trying to escape? Not so easy. Nan Yuxing's saber missed. How could he be satisfied? Seeing that Chu Luiyue was about to run, he immediately chased after her. Rong Xiu, who was teaching Luo Yan, tipped his toes and ran over as well. Luo Yan had no choice but to chase after them. In the blink of an eye, the four figures were already far away. The people who were left behind looked at each other. Where were they going? Mo Yun clenched his fists and immediately followed at full speed. Today, no matter where they ran to, their lives were going to be his. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1879. Chu Luiyue was extremely fast. However, Nan Yuxing was already a supreme god expert. He was still faster than her when he went at full speed. The distance between the two was shrinking. I want to see where you can run to today. Nan Yuxing's expression was cold and ferocious. His desire for revenge had almost swallowed him up. At this moment, he couldn't hear anything and couldn't see anything. All he could think of was to kill Chu Luiyue. She was Rong Xiu's wife and the person that Rong Xiu treasured the most. If he killed her, it would be more painful than killing Rong Xiu directly. Therefore, from the beginning, Nan Yuxing's first target was Chu Luiyue. Soon, they left the city and came to the mountain range. Looking around, there were pink and white peach blossoms in full bloom everywhere. The air was filled with the rich fragrance of peach blossoms. It was a lively scene. Nan Yuxing didn't think so. Does Chu Luiyue think that she can use this steep and winding mountain range to hide from me by escaping here? Naive. Before coming to Peach Blossom Dock, he had already investigated the situation here. Mysterious, dangerous, unknown, chaotic. However, he didn't take it to heart. He came here just to kill two people. How much time and effort could he waste? Once the matter was settled, he could just leave. Peach Blossom Dock. What was there to worry about? Besides, from what he saw, there was nothing special about this place except for the rich energy of heaven and earth and the beautiful scenery. Nan Yuxing casually looked around and quickly retracted his gaze. The distance between him and Chu Luiyue was still shrinking. At this rate, in less than half an hour, he would be able to, whoosh. A reddish gold figure suddenly appeared beside Chu Luiyue. With a flap of its huge wings, the blazing flames caused the temperature of the surroundings to rise in an instant. Reddish gold heavenly phoenix. Chu Luiyue lightly jumped onto Dumpling. She gently patted Dumpling's head. Let's go. Bang! A clear chime instantly spread across the area. In an instant, the countless magical beasts in the forest below all knelt on the ground and looked at the figure in the sky in awe. The distance between the two sides widened again. Nan Yuxing's heart was filled with hatred. She had actually forgotten that she had such a contracted divine beast. With the help of the crimson gold celestial phoenix, it would be much easier for her to escape. Nan Yuxing's figure did not stop as he madly circulated the origin power in his body. Then, silver-white lightning flashed under his feet. His speed also began to increase at a rate visible to the naked eye. After Chu Luiyue and Nan Yuxing, it was Rong Xiu and Luo Yan. At first, Luo Yan was only worried that Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue would join hands and Nan Yuxing wouldn't be a match for them. After all, Rong Xiu was also a supreme god. However, he soon realized that something was amiss. Rong Xiu didn't seem to be going at full speed. It wasn't obvious at first, but as time passed, the distance between Rong Xiu and Nan Yuxing didn't change at all. Only then did Luo Yan realize that Rong Xiu's goal didn't seem to be to chase after Nan Yuxing. Rong Xiu was a genuine supreme god expert. If he really wanted to chase after Nan Yuxing, why hadn't he narrowed the distance between them until now? Looking at the tall figure in white in front of him, Luo Yan realized in hindsight. Rong Xiu was actually blocking him. Every time he wanted to overtake him, Rong Xiu would appear intentionally or unintentionally and block his path, causing him to be unable to catch up. After so many times, Luo Yan finally couldn't take it anymore. Rong Xiu. You're just wasting time by blocking me here. Are you really not worried about the safety of your princess consort at all? She was a supreme god, while Nan Yuxing was a supreme god. If the two of them fought, she would almost certainly lose. And according to Nan Yuxing's current state, once he caught up, he would definitely fight to the death. Not stop until he died. Rong Xiu was actually so careless. Luo Yan really felt that it was extremely strange. Didn't Rong Xiu care a lot about her when they were in the god-slaying mound earlier? Why did it seem that he didn't even care about her life now? Of course I'll protect Ai's consort. There's no need for others to worry about this. Luo Yan, if you have the time, you should think about how you're going to explain to Nan Yifan when you go back if Nan Yuxing dies in Peach Blossom Dock today. Rong Xiu stopped, turned around, and stared at Luo Yan with a faint smile. That pair of deep phoenix eyes seemed to have seen through everything. Luo Yan's heart skipped a beat, and he frowned subconsciously and looked away. Master doesn't know that we're here this time. You don't have to use him to pressure us. Rong Xiu looked at him and chuckled. It was as if he had heard a joke. Nan Yifan is getting bolder. Not only did he frame Nan Yi's death on Yintian Tower, he even dared to let Nan Yuxing and Luo Yan come to seek revenge. He was really not afraid of dying out. Luo Yan's heart beat even faster. For some reason, he always felt that he had nowhere to hide in front of Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu was clearly much younger than him, but every time they met, Luo Yan always felt that he couldn't see through Rong Xiu. This kind of feeling rarely appeared for him. Even when he was facing Nan Yifan, he didn't feel like this. Only Rong Xiu. This man seemed to be hiding too many secrets. Just as the two of them were in a stalemate, Luo Yan heard the whistling of the wind behind him. He looked back. Mo Yun and the others were also rushing over here. Although he didn't know why Mo Yun also wanted to kill Rong Xiu and Nan Yifan, they were now on the same side. Luo Yan spoke almost without any hesitation. I'm Luo Yan of the Nan family. I wonder if Vice Sect leader Mo is interested in joining forces? Mo Yun glanced at him and nodded without any hesitation. Okay. Anyway, they had the same goal. If they could join forces, they could save some effort. The two of them directly agreed on the alliance. Mo Yun subconsciously looked at Rong Xiu, but found that his expression was still calm, as if he didn't care about this matter at all. Was he really confident, or pretending? Mo Yun didn't know, and he couldn't be bothered to find out. He knew about the Nan family's reputation. Not to mention other things, the few venerable gods who came here today couldn't be underestimated. As long as the two sides joined forces, Rong Xiu and the others today, boom. A loud sound suddenly came from afar. Mo Yun and Luo Yan turned their heads to look at the same time, only to see an icy blue flame soaring into the sky from the top of a mountain. Luo Yan was confused, but Mo Yun suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed abruptly. That direction was Lan Qingfeng. Chu Luiyue actually went to Lan Qingfeng. Digression, 6:00 recently, the pneumonia situation has been serious. Everyone should pay more attention to hygiene and avoid crowded places. Be careful. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1880. At this time, of all places, why did she have to go to Lan Qingfeng? She should know that there were many people from Black Sword sect guarding Lan Qingfeng. Even under such circumstances, she still insisted on going. A white light suddenly flashed in Mo Yun's heart. Could it be, those two people from before were you guys? Mo Yun looked at Rong Xiu in disbelief. Because of his excitement, his voice became sharp. Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes and did not say anything. However, in Mo Yun's eyes, this reaction was no different from a tacit agreement. It must be them. No wonder from the beginning to the end, Sanson's attitude towards the two followers was very strange. No matter what, he insisted on protecting them and bringing them along. In the face of danger, Sanson's first consideration was those two people. After the incident, he was also the first to suggest that the two of them should be released, At first, Mo Yun only felt that it was a little strange, but he did not take it to heart. However, now that he thought about it, everything seemed to indicate something. The situation that day kept replaying in his mind. Mo Yun sucked in a cold breath. Perhaps the secret on Lan Qingfeng was not hidden with Sanson, but Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue. Once this thought appeared, it spread wildly in Mo Yun's heart like weeds, almost causing him to be shocked and angry. He gasped and then ran in the direction of Chu Luiyue without hesitation. The key now was definitely Chu Luiyue. Luo Yan, who was at the side, was confused by the sudden situation. This Mo Yun. Why does it seem like something terrible suddenly happened? He originally wanted to ask a few more questions, but Mo Yun had already gone over there, not giving him the time or opportunity. Looks like the situation is urgent, Luo Yan thought in his heart as he quickly followed. No matter what, it was definitely right to join forces with Mo Yun to stop them. Rong Xiu could stop one of them, but could he fight two of them? However, such optimistic thoughts were quickly shattered. Because, the people behind had also caught up. The first to catch up was actually Cin Yi. Mo Yun had just realized that something was wrong and planned to chase after Chu Luiyue when he felt a blur in front of him. A slender green figure appeared in front of him. When he saw the other party's face clearly, Mo Yun's heart thumped. This Cin Yi was actually so secretive. The ability to catch up with him without making a sound was definitely a venerable god expert. But when he saw it before, he didn't notice it at all. When Luo Yan saw this scene from the side, he was also secretly shocked. He had some impression of this person. He seemed to be one of Chu Liuyue's subordinates, and he was the big brother of that group of subordinates. But didn't she say that her subordinates had followed her in the Tianling dynasty? Born outside the divine ruins world. No one cared about this group of people at all. According to the grapevine, it seemed that many people in the Yuntian Tower looked down on them. But because of Chu Liuyue's face, he barely managed to maintain a peaceful appearance. Sensing the divine aura on Cin Yi's body that could not be ignored, Luo Yan was stunned. This was a true venerable god expert. Even in the Yuntian Tower, such an existence was rare and definitely worthy of respect. How did the news from before spread? I didn't expect that Shangguan you would have a venerable god expert as a subordinate. Mo Yun gritted his teeth and said word by word. He did not act rashly. Because he could clearly feel that Cin Yi's strength was not inferior to his. First, there was Rong Xiu, which was already difficult enough to deal with. Now, there was Cin Yi. Just as the two sides were in a stalemate again, the sound of wind breaking could be heard. Mo Yun and Luo Yan both relaxed. Someone was here. However, before the corners of their mouths could curl up, a voice came from behind, causing their expressions to stiffen. Big brother. We're not late, are we? This voice. It was talking to Cin Yi. Mo Yun and Luo Yan looked at each other and saw deep shock in each other's eyes. Then, the two of them turned around at the same time and saw a few figures rushing over. It was Sanson and the others who were surrounded earlier. The Yu clan's 13 Yu had all arrived at the Yu residence. Even little Hachi, who was sleeping earlier, had rushed over. But other than that, there was not a single person from the Nan family or Majian sect. Luo Yan glanced around and blurted out. Why are you guys here? He thought that the ones chasing after them would be. Shouldn't these people have all been dealt with? Sanson chuckled and narrowed her eyes. Why can't it be us? Since someone had already come knocking on his door, how could he still hide his strength? Of course, they would give them a few slaps. Cin Yi's gaze swept across the few of them. Other than 13, who had not fought much head-on, Sanson and the others were more or less injured. However, it did not look serious. Sensing his gaze, Sanson hurriedly said, Don't worry, big brother. Most of this is the blood of the Nan family and Majian sect. We're fine. Mo Yun and Luo Yan's faces darkened. What kind of words were these? Could it be that with their abilities, they could really be a match for so many people? So you guys were hiding your strength too? Mo Yun's gaze was as sharp as a knife as it fiercely scraped past Sanson and the others. Every word seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps of his teeth, carrying with it anger and resentment. It was fine if it was the others, but Sanson had been in front of him for so long, yet he did not realize this. To think that he had always thought that Sanson was completely under his control. Now it seemed that it was all a disguise. Boom! Another loud sound was heard. Heaven and earth shook. Everyone turned to look. The flames on Lan Qingfeng's peak were burning even more fiercely. Luo Yan and Mo Yun looked at each other. They had to rush over as soon as possible. Who knew what Chu Luiyue was planning to do there? The last time Lan Qingfeng exploded, they almost failed to control him. If they were to do it again, the consequences would be even more unimaginable. Mo Yun's heart was boiling with anger. In the end, he chose to force his way out. Scram! At this moment, Lan Qingfeng was in chaos. As soon as Chu Luiyue arrived, he attracted the attention of the people who were guarding Lan Qingfeng. At this moment, Mo Lin was recuperating. The incident a few days ago had caused him a lot of trouble. Now that he had managed to save his life, he naturally seized every opportunity to recover his strength. As soon as he sensed that something was wrong, he immediately became alert. He was a little confused when he saw what was happening. He didn't recognize the beautiful woman who was rapidly approaching. However, when he saw the crimson gold fiend under her, he immediately reacted. That was a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. You, before he could ask, the woman had already charged towards Lan Qingfeng. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1881. Molin's first reaction was to mobilize the surrounding people to chase after her. Stop her. Ever since the enchantment on Lanqing Peak was broken, Molin was ordered to guard this place with his men. Mo Yun had ordered that no one was allowed to enter this place without his permission. Therefore, when he saw Chu Luiyue barging in, Molin was naturally very nervous and angry. However, the crimson gold celestial phoenix was too fast. In the blink of an eye, the crimson gold figure had broken through the surrounding people's line of defense and headed straight for Lanqing Peak. Molin was anxious and angry. He used his full speed to chase after her. At the same time, a matter suddenly appeared in his mind. Crimson gold celestial phoenix. This was an ancient divine beast. Normally, it would not have any contact with humans. However, from the current situation, the crimson gold celestial phoenix seemed to be very obedient to that woman as though it was a contracted divine beast. Wait! There was a rumor in the Divine Ruins world that a woman had contracted the crimson gold celestial phoenix. Molin suddenly opened his eyes wide. That woman was the new princess consort of the Yuntian Tower, Shengguanyu? For a moment, Molin had mixed feelings. Countless questions flashed through his mind. Didn't she just get married to the saint of the Yuntian Tower, Rongshou? Why did she suddenly appear here? Moreover, since she was here, did that mean that Rongshou was here too? When did they come to Peach Blossom Dock? Why didn't Ink Sword Sect receive any news? Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Molin's mind was in a mess. However, what made him even more uneasy was that Chu Luiyue seemed to have a motive for coming here. When she came here, she brought the crimson gold celestial phoenix to Lanqing Peak without saying anything. What exactly was, boom? Just as the people of Ink Sword Sect came from all directions and planned to surround and trap Chu Luiyue, the crimson gold celestial phoenix suddenly swooped down to the waist of the mountain. Then, the woman waved her wrist. A faint blue flame suddenly burst out from the bottom of the mountain rock and shot up to the sky. The surging flames contained an astonishing amount of power as they spread out in all directions. Mo Lin and the others were the first to bear the brunt of the attack. They were immediately forced to stop and retreat swiftly. However, some of the scorching sparks still flew out and landed on Mo Lin and the others, causing them to feel scorching pain. Looking at the wounds that had suddenly appeared on his body, Molin was both shocked and angry, but more than that, he was confused and panicked. He hurriedly looked up, only to see that the crimson gold celestial phoenix had already charged up again, heading straight for the mountain peak. And that slender and exquisite figure stood on its back. The wind swept up her long hair and the corners of her clothes. Her beautiful eyes were filled with a biting cold battle intent. As if she had sensed Molin's gaze, she suddenly turned around to take a look. Even though there was still some distance between them, Molin could still clearly see that pair of eyes in that instant. Black as ink, bright as the stars. Mo Lin's footsteps hesitated for a moment. An indescribable sense of danger welled up in his heart. He did not know where this feeling came from, but it was very deep. Clearly, the other party was a high god expert like him. Logically speaking, there was nothing to be afraid of. Even if she had the crimson gold celestial phoenix, they had so many people on their side. At this moment, Chu Luiyue raised her hand again. Boom! Another loud sound was heard. At another location halfway up the mountain, a second ball of flames burst out. Molin's heart felt as if it had been hammered by something. At this moment, he suddenly realized that Chu Luiyue seemed to be able to control the flames on Langfang Peak as she wished. Previously, the flames that had been burning for a few days had finally been extinguished and returned to the cracked mountain rocks. Now that she had made her move, the flames appeared again. Moreover, the aura seemed to be even more shocking than before. Lord Molin, this woman can control the flames on Langfang Peak. I'm afraid she's not simple. Seeing this, the other people from Majian's sect also realized that something was wrong, and they all became fearful. They might not know the identity of this woman, but they all knew how terrifying the flames on Langfang Peak were. So many people had already died before, and they did not want to step on this path again. Once they became fearful, their combat power would be greatly reduced. At this moment, the people from Majian's sect were like that. In fact, Mo Lin was one of them. Just from the two balls of flames that had suddenly erupted, he could already tell that Chu Luiyue's strength was far beyond the rumors. Plus, she had the help of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. They were even less of a match for her. Seal off Langfang Peak. I want to see what she's planning to do. Yes. Hearing this, the others quickly responded. They did not move forward anymore, but chose to stay in their positions and attack together. Numerous forces flew out at the same time. They gathered above Langfang Peak. The rich energy surged violently. Then, this energy formed a huge barrier, trying to trap Chu Luiyue within. Chu Luiyue looked over, and her red lips curled up slightly. You want to stop me with just this? She straightened her back and held Scarlet Heaven's sword tightly with both hands. Surging origin power gushed out from his dantian and poured into the snow-white blade. She wanted to completely overturn this peach blossom cove and take a look. Previously, she was still hesitating on how to do this without batting an eyelid. Since she had already fallen out with Majian's sect, then, she might as well take this opportunity to make her move. Chu Luiyue held her breath and concentrated, then she swung her sword fiercely. However, the sword light did not reach Langfang Peak, but another peak at the side. Digression, there are 2 more updates today, and I will finish them before 8 o'clock. You can read them together later. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1882. A rainbow light pierced through the sky. The dazzling and bright sword light slashed down with a domineering aura. Crack. The crisp sound of something breaking was heard. The barrier that the people of Black Sword sect had just set up was shattered. The barrier did not even have the slightest effect on the Scarlet Cloud sword. It had already turned into countless streams of light and scattered in all directions. Poof. Mo Lin and the rest felt the backlash and their faces turned pale. Immediately after, under their horrified gazes, the sword light accurately landed on another mountain peak. Boom! The sound was earth-shattering. A crack suddenly appeared on the steep and tall mountain peak. In an instant, a gale swept across and countless pinkish-white peach blossoms fell. Then, a faint blue flame surged out from the crack on the mountain peak. This scene caused everyone present to be dumbstruck. Because they were too shocked, everyone fell into a strange deathly silence for a moment. After a while, someone muttered, "What's going on? Why is there a flame coming out from the bottom of the mountain?" The people of Black Sword Sect knew that there was a secret hidden under the Azure Peak. Hence, the mountain fire raged on. Otherwise, Mo Yun would not have asked them to keep watch over this place. He would rather pay a huge price than give up on this place. Almost everyone had silently agreed that there was some kind of opportunity hidden in the Azure Peak. But now, why was the mountain beside it also burning? Did this mean that there was something hidden under the mountain peak as well? Mo Lin clenched his teeth in silence. Go back immediately. Report this to the vice sect leader. At this moment, even he could not guarantee what would happen next. However, before they could move, they saw another group of people approaching. It was Nan Yuxing, who had followed Chu Luyue all the way here. The scarlet gold celestial phoenix was extremely fast. Even though Nan Yuxing had already exerted all his strength, he still could not catch up with it. Moreover, the distance between the two of them had widened again. This was also why he had only rushed over after Chu Luyue had been here for a while. However, at this moment, Nan Yuxing was also confused by the scene before him. A trace of shock flashed across Nan Yuxing's face when he saw the bursting flames. If I didn't see wrongly, those flames seemed to be caused by Chu Luyue. She merely raised her hand, and flames began to burn on the mountain peak. This flame is clearly unusual. How did Chu Luyue do this? Nan Yuxing had just arrived at the Peach Blossom Dock today. Therefore, he did not know what had happened to Lan Qingfeng a few days ago. You are, Mo Lin noticed Nan Yuxing and instantly became alert. Venerable God. Nan Yuxing coldly glanced at him. His gaze paused for a moment on the embroidered pattern of two swords circling the moon on their left chest. Someone from the Black Sword Sect? Molan felt a little uncomfortable. Judging from this person's tone, he seemed to be high and mighty. It was as if he didn't place the Black Sword Sect in his eyes at all. Not bad. This is our territory. May I know who your excellency is and why you're here? Nan Yuxing sneered. Your territory? If this is really your territory, how can you allow that Shangguan Yu to act so presumptuously here? Molan's expression instantly turned ugly. What's more, can't you tell what I'm here for? Nan Yuxing raised his saber and pointed it at Chu Luyue. I'm here today to kill her. At this moment, Chu Luyue and Dumpling had already flown from Lan Qingfeng to the second mountain peak. She knew that Nan Yuxing had already caught up with her. She also knew that the people from the Black Sword Sect were eyeing her covetously. However, she didn't care. Because she had more important things to do now. She jumped down from Dumpling's body. At this moment, they were standing at the crack that had just been split open. Not far in front of them, there was a burning flame. Chu Luyue held her breath and focused before she closed her eyes. Dumpling stood guard at the side, vigilantly observing the surroundings. When he heard that Nan Yuxing said that they were here to kill Chu Luyue, Molan's expression eased a little. Looking at the other party's formation, it didn't seem like they were lying. Molan frowned and thought to himself. Looking at the current situation, even if they joined forces, they might not be able to deal with that woman. However, if they had this person's help, it would undoubtedly make things easier for them. After all, she was a venerable god expert. Her fighting strength couldn't be underestimated. If they could let the snipe and the clam fight, what is she doing? Just as Molan was thinking of how to reap the benefits of the fisherman, a surprised voice suddenly sounded in his ears. He instinctively looked in the direction of the voice and saw Chu Luyue standing still on the mountain peak with her eyes closed at this moment. She seemed to be waiting for something. Molan frowned even more. At this moment, in this place, what was the meaning of her doing this? Could it be related to the blue flame? He thought about it repeatedly, but to no avail. On the other hand, Nan Yuxing didn't care at all. The flame was indeed strange, but it wasn't enough to make him feel fear. Looking at her, it was obvious that she was brewing something. If he didn't make a move now, when would he? Without hesitation, Nan Yuxing tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and charged towards Chu Luiyue. What, you can't escape anymore? His words were filled with undisguised mockery. From his point of view, Chu Luiyue had racked her brains to come here just to control the flames. If she thought that she could stop him with this, she was too naive. Chu Luiyue's thick and long eyelashes trembled slightly, but she still didn't open her eyes. At this moment, all her attention was placed on the flame. There should be. She had clearly sensed that under this mountain peak, go to hell. Nan Yuxing had already flown in front of Chu Luiyue. The surrounding energy of heaven and earth gathered crazily towards his long saber. In the next moment, he held the saber with both hands and slashed out. Wherever the saber light passed, the void began to collapse rapidly. Violent spatial fluctuations began to spread out with the two of them as the center. At the same time, a dangerous aura surged towards them. The expressions of Mo Lin and the rest changed. Quick, retreat. The void began to collapse in all directions. At this moment, Nan Yuxing didn't realize what was happening. In his eyes, there was only Chu Luiyue. His only thought was to kill her on the spot. Dumpling flew up. She flapped her wings. Whoosh! A burning reddish-gold fire suddenly flew out and rapidly formed a gigantic barrier in front of Chu Luiyue. Boom! The two forces collided violently. Nan Yuxing had used all his strength this time. After a short stalemate, cracks began to appear on the barrier. At the same time, countless spatial turbulences began to surge out from the collapsing void, crushing the barrier to pieces. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1883. This scene finally made Nan Yuxing realize that the situation was not right. He quickly turned his eyes and took a closer look. In a short period of time, several black spatial rifts had appeared in all directions. At this moment, these spatial rifts were slowly intertwining and merging with each other, and the tyrannical turbulence that was constantly gushing out also began to fight fiercely. Countless chaotic energies collided with each other, causing the situation to become even worse. No, Nan Yuxing frowned. He had indeed not held back when he attacked just now. However, even if it was an all-out attack from a venerable god expert, it should not have caused such a situation. Moreover, he had just broken through as a venerable god. This situation was indeed a little strange. However, this thought only flashed through his mind for a moment before it was quickly drowned out by hatred. Right now, he only wanted to kill Chu Luiyue and take revenge for Nan Yi. As for the rest, it would not be too late to deal with them after all these things were over. Nan Yuxing was a very proud person. The things that had happened during this period of time had caused him a great deal of agitation. Therefore, his emotions were still in a very extreme state at this moment. If he could calm down now and take a closer look at the situation around him, he would realize that a terrifying danger was quietly approaching. Unfortunately, at this moment, nothing could enter his eyes, and nothing could enter his ears. He did not even take Mo Lin and the other's strange retreat to heart. He only wanted to kill Chu Luiyue. After the barrier that Dumpling had set up shattered, the terrifying blade light went straight for Chu Luiyue's face. The strands of hair on her forehead had been swept up by the wind. Dumpling was on guard, and there seemed to be flames burning in her eyes. Just as she was about to attack again, she heard Chu Luiyue's voice from behind her. Found it. Dumpling turned around. Chu Luiyue suddenly opened her eyes. She raised her hand, and a black shield suddenly appeared in front of her. Nan Yuxing's heart skipped a beat. Previously, he had seen how powerful Chu Luiyue's shield was. He did not know if his attack after breaking through as a venerable god would be able to break through the black shield. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. He saw that the black shield seemed to be different from before. He took a closer look and realized that a few pieces of rust had been peeled off from the surface of the metal. The shield, which was originally flat, became bumpy in an instant. It looked a little shabby. Nan Yuxing almost laughed out loud. Shengguan Yu. I haven't seen you for a while, and this treasure of yours has already been broken. Or is it that you don't have any other suitable yuan instruments on you? Chu Luiyue clenched the black shield in his hand and looked up. Their eyes met. Nan Yuxing could clearly see the cunning glint in that pair of clear, black jade-like eyes. This made his heart sink. Chu Luiyue's red lips curved slightly. To deal with you, this is enough. Just as she finished speaking, a stream of light suddenly flew out from the flames in front of her and headed straight for the shield. Almost at the same time, a piece of rust peeled off from the shield. That stream of light quickly replaced it. Nan Yuxing was standing closest to it, so he did not have time to see what it was. When he finally reacted, he saw that the black shield seemed to be glowing a few times and then quickly dimmed. That was, for some reason, he suddenly felt uneasy. Chu Luiyue had already flown up and blocked the attack with the shield in front of her. Dumpling. Hearing the call, Dumpling obediently flapped its wings and flew behind her. One man and one beast were hiding behind the black shield. Nan Yuxing forced a mocking smile. It's just a pile of scrap, rumble. Before he could finish his sentence, the power of the two sides collided violently. An earth-shattering explosion. Nan Yuxing even felt that his ears were ringing. Even his heart became numb. But in the next moment, an even more shocking scene happened. After the sword light collided with the black shield, it did not stop at all and disappeared with a loud bang. In an instant, light scattered in all directions. The strong backlash caused Nan Yuxing's chest to shake, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Puff! His face instantly turned pale. He staggered back half a step. Although it was only half a step, it was a great humiliation to Nan Yuxing. He actually lost? He actually lost to a high god with the power of a god. He looked up in shock and anger and looked at the black shield in Chu Luiyue's hand again. What kind of yuan instrument was this? How could it block his attack so easily? Molan and the others, who were watching from afar, were also deeply shocked. For a long time, they were speechless. Even a high god like Nan Yuxing would end up like this. If it were them, they would probably end up even more miserable. Lord Molan, just now, something seemed to have flown out from the fire. After a while, someone finally spoke up. His voice was trembling. Molan was suddenly energized. That's right. Just now, something had indeed flown out from the fire and landed on her shield. What was that? Before they could figure it out, Chu Luiyue had already turned around and headed toward the third mountain. Her figure was light and agile, and her red dress fluttered in the wind. From afar, she looked like a ball of crimson flame, joyfully moving through the dense forest. Then, she raised her sword again. Molan suddenly realized something, and his eyes widened in shock. She's going to split the mountain? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1884. Chu Luiyue swung her sword a second time without any hesitation. The sword chimed and shook the heavens and the earth. The terrifying sword energy tore the sky apart and slashed down. Rumble. Following a loud crash, the mountain next to it was slashed apart once again. The originally steep and precipitous mountain peak was neatly cut open from the top of the mountain, leaving behind a huge crack. Boom! Then, another ball of blue flames burst out from the crack and soared into the sky. Nan Yuxing's pupils shrank. He had a bad feeling. In the distance, Mo Lin and the others were even more shocked. How could this be? How could this be? Wasn't it said that only the bottom of Langkingfeng Peak had amazing opportunities? But now, why were there flames bursting out from the bottom of the surrounding mountains? Chu Luiyue had only swung her sword twice, but she had already split open 2 mountains and ignited 2 balls of flames. Every swing of her sword was accurate. Mo Lin's heart was filled with fear. He had already vaguely realized that Chu Luiyue had indeed come prepared. Or rather, she had done it on purpose. What was she going to do? Split open all the mountains and ignite all the flames below? Mo Lin's mind was in a mess when he thought of the scene where something flew onto her shield from the flames. He stared at the figure and felt that it was familiar. Suddenly, he opened his eyes wide. Could it be that she was the one who followed Sanson to Lankingfang Peak that day? Otherwise, how could she ignite the flames on Lankingfang Peak so easily? There were even other things below the mountains. It must be her. It must be her. At this moment, Mo Lin finally understood. From the beginning to the end, these flames were closely related to Chu Luiyue. If it's really as I thought, then, the thing buried under Lan Qingfeng would have long been taken by Chu Luiyue as her own. Mo Lin broke out in cold sweat when this thought appeared in his mind. You guys stay here and guard. I'll personally invite the vice faction leader. As he spoke, he was about to turn around when he suddenly heard the sound of something breaking through the air from afar. Everyone looked over and was immediately shocked. Because, it was a group of people. To be more precise, it was a chaotic battle between several parties. Mo Yun was also among them. Mo Lin was just about to step forward when he suddenly realized that those people who were fighting were rather unfamiliar, but their strengths were extremely formidable. Third boss is here too. Someone exclaimed. Mo Lin looked over and frowned. Not only was Sanson here, but she was also standing opposite Mo Lin. At this moment, she was fighting with full vigor. From the looks of it, they seemed to be stopping Mo Yun's group from coming over. On the other side, there seemed to be an unfamiliar god expert working together with Mo Yun. The scene was extremely chaotic. Mo Lin and the others were completely dumbfounded. What was going on? They had only been guarding this place for 2 days. How could so many things have happened? Whoosh! Rong Xiu waved his sleeves, and a faint golden barrier blocked Mo Yun and the others outside. Sensing the astonishing pressure surging from above, Mo Yun was shocked and angry. This Rong Xiu was too difficult to deal with. And that Sun Yi, his strength was also far beyond their imagination. Mo Yun's gaze turned, looking past Rong Xiu and the others to Lan Qingfeng, who was behind them. His heart sank the moment he saw what was in front of him. The fire on Lan Qingfeng had indeed started burning. The key point was that other than Lan Qingfeng, there were also blue flames burning crazily on the 2 mountains beside it. From the looks of it, it was obvious that someone had forcefully split open the mountain rocks and drawn it out from below. Mo Yun's gaze finally landed on the slender figure standing on the mountain peak. She stood against the wind, holding a shield in her left hand and a sword in her right hand. Her eyes were tightly shut, and no one knew what she was doing. In front of her, a deep ravine extended, and the blazing flames were jumping around like fairies. At this moment, countless thoughts flashed through Mo Yun's mind. However, before he could think clearly, he saw something suddenly flying out from the flames, heading straight for Chu Luiyue. Almost at the same time, Chu Luiyue suddenly opened her eyes and raised the black shield in her hand. Buzz! That ray of light landed on the shield, and there was a ripple of light. However, in just an instant, that ray of light quickly disappeared. It was as if it had been swallowed by the black shield, but it was as if nothing had happened. How could it be that nothing had happened? Mo Yun's heart felt as if it was being squeezed by something. He was extremely smart. Based on what he had seen so far, it was enough to explain a lot of things. That day, the enchantment on Lan Qingfeng suddenly dissipated, and the flames gradually extinguished. It must be because of her. Then the thing below, probably, however, according to the information that he had gathered, it was clearly only the situation below Lan Qingfeng. Now, even the surrounding mountains were, a huge amount of information rushed in, causing Mo Yun's mind to go blank. At this moment, Chu Luiyue looked down at the shield in her hand. As expected, after the rust peeled off, it became heavier. The 2 hidden powers that were summoned by splitting open the 2 mountains had all merged into the black shield. The originally flat shield became more and more uneven. Complicated and mysterious patterns could be vaguely seen in the shallow depression. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and looked up. If she wanted the rust on the black shield to be completely peeled off, it would be an extremely torturous and long process. As the secret text on it gradually appeared, its weight and pressure continued to increase. She could still carry it now, but if this continued, she was not sure how long she could hold on. She pursed her lips and continued to head to the next mountain. Seeing Chu Luiyue running to the next mountain, Mo Yun's heart suddenly surged with a strong sense of uneasiness. He could almost predict what Chu Luiyue was going to do. The anger in his heart was surging, and it was about to rush out of his chest. Force surged in Mo Yun's palm, and then he quickly slammed his palm forward. Lingyun palm. A huge greenish-black palm print condensed in the void. Then, it began to quickly head toward the enchantment set up by Rongxiu. The power of both sides began to silently kill, entangle, and devour. Ripples appeared on the surface of the barrier, but it did not shatter. It was extremely flexible. On the contrary, it was that palm print of Mo Yun that started to gradually weaken in the midst of the frenzied battle. Mo Yun was burning with anxiety as he watched. He was indeed not confident that he could win against Rongxiu in a head-on battle. But time was of the essence. If he continued to let Chu Luiyue go on like this, the consequences would be unimaginable. Rongxiu. Do you know what she's doing? If the entire peach blossom dock is destroyed, you... Mo Yun shouted at the top of his lungs, and his face was ashen. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows slightly. As long as she wants to, let her be. It's just a peach blossom dock. If it's destroyed, I will take responsibility. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1885. His handsome face was calm and composed, as if he didn't take this matter to heart at all. Her eyes were filled with elegance, and one could see that she was indulging and doting on that person. It was as though even if she turned everything upside down, he would still spoil her. Mo Yun was so angry that he could not speak, his body trembling. These two people were too presumptuous. Rongxiu. Don't blame me for not reminding you. This is Peach Blossom Dock. If she did anything out of line, the entire Peach Blossom Dock would be buried with her. The surrounding void had already started to collapse uncontrollably. It was not that Mo Yun had not seen such a situation before, but he had never experienced such a serious situation before. Rongxiu's brows raised slightly. I really can't tell that vice sect leader Mo actually has such a heart. In these 2 years, the number of people who died under your Ink Sword sect is not small, right? If vice sect leader Mo really cares about the world and cares about everyone, why not harm fewer people? I think it will be more effective this way. You. Mo Yun was speechless by Rongxiu's words. Of course, he did not care about the life and death of the people in Peach Blossom Dock. He was only worried that Chu Luiyue would monopolize the things that they had been searching for so long. But of course, such a reason could not be said. Mo Yun could only be anxious. At the side, Luo Yan's expression was solemn as his mind raced. There was obviously another reason why Mo Yun was so worried. Could it be the flames on the mountain? He looked forward, and through the enchantment, he could only see Nan Yuxing slightly hunched back. It seemed that he was injured. Luo Yan could not help but frown. Nan Yuxing was already a god expert. How could he not be able to defeat Chu Luiyue, who was a high god? Could it be that in this short period of time, Chu Luiyue's strength had increased again? Just as both sides were in a deadlock, another group of people rushed over from behind. This aura was somewhat familiar. Luo Yan's heart skipped a beat as he hurriedly turned back to look, and was immediately delighted. The few people who had chased over were the Nan family who came with them. Behind them, there were also some people from the Black Sword sect. However, Luo Yan soon discovered that the number of people was wrong. Originally, there were 8 elders present. However, only 4 of them had come. Luo Yan's heart was filled with a strong sense of unease. He immediately stepped forward. Only when he got closer did he see that the bodies of these people were stained with messy bloodstains. It seemed like they had gone through a fierce battle. "Why are there only 4 of you? Where are the rest?" Luo Yan asked anxiously. The elders looked at each other with dejected expressions. "Those people are all," Luo Yan's heart turned cold. The 4 who were still alive were all eminent gods. Even they were unable to save him, he couldn't help but say, "How could this be? Judging from their strength, they are definitely not your match." Them he was referring to was naturally Sanson and the others. Previously, when he and Mo Yun chased after them, Rong Xiao and Sini quickly caught up. As for the rest, they only came after a period of time. At that time, he thought that they had used some method to temporarily stop the people from the Black Sword sect and the Nan family. Who would have thought that it would take so many people's lives? One of the elders spoke with difficulty. "Luo Yan, you don't know. The people from the Yu family have extremely powerful formations. If they were to fight individually, the people from the Yu family were indeed no match for several eminent gods. However, who knew that this group of people had already thought of a strategy from the beginning? When Rong Xiao and the others left, they didn't say anything and immediately set up a profound formation. That formation was very strange. They worked together with the people from the Black Sword sect to break it with great difficulty. However, they also paid a great price. The same went for the Black Sword sect. In fact, because they didn't have many eminent gods, their casualties were even more serious. In short, to them, it was indeed a bloody battle. However, the most hateful thing was that they were trapped in that formation. Sanson and the others who set up the formation only handed it over to the servants of the Yu family and then left directly. This was also why Sanson and the others had rushed over so much earlier than them. In other words, Sanson and the others had killed half of them without any effort. After Luo Yan heard this, he was shocked and angry. At the same time, there was a trace of uncontrollable deep fear. He couldn't help but turn back. At this moment, Sanson and the others were standing beside Sun Yi, looking obedient. Seeing the people who chased after them, Sanson couldn't help but click her tongue. Eminent gods are indeed different. They actually caught up so quickly. This sentence almost angered Luo Yan and the others half to death. Fast? How was it fast? Under the circumstances where so many people had died, they barely managed to rush out of the formation and catch up here. It could be said that it wasn't painful. Sanson's words were no different from sprinkling salt on their wounds. Luo Yan's chest rose and fell violently. However, at the same time, countless thoughts were surging in his heart. Looking at these people, they didn't even put them, eminent gods, in their eyes. Luo Yan wanted to curse, but the thick smell of blood around the people around him made it hard for him to breathe. Didn't they say that these people came from outside the divine ruins world? How could they be so powerful? Luo Yan couldn't figure it out. There was no need to talk about Rongxiu. After all, he was an eminent god and was born as the holy son of the Yuntian Tower. His bloodline talent was already famous for being powerful. But, what about Chu Luiyue? Wasn't she just an eminent god? And these followers of hers? They actually possessed strength that far exceeded their own cultivation realm. Why were the people related to her so abnormal? On the other side, Mo Yun didn't care so much. Seeing that the people from Black Sword sect had caught up, he ordered without hesitation, "Everyone from Black Sword sect, listen up. Set up the formation." Yes. With Mo Yun's order, no one dared to disobey and immediately took action. There were about a dozen people from Black Sword sect chasing after them, but in Mo Yun's eyes, it was still not enough. Chu Luiyue could directly split the mountain and draw out the blue flames from the bottom of the mountain. This proved that her strength was definitely more shocking than the rumors. Mo Lin. Mo Yun looked up and shouted sternly. Mo Lin's heart skipped a beat as he hurriedly replied, "Yes." Without Mo Yun's instructions, he knew what to do. "Everyone, follow." Mo Lin raised his hand and immediately led the people behind him to charge towards Mo Yun and the others. Rong Xiu's barrier blocked them. Looking at the barrier that was suffused with a faint golden color, a trace of hesitation flashed across Mo Lin's face, but it disappeared in an instant. In the next moment, he directly drew his sword and drew a line on his palm. Qi. Blood splattered. Following that, a surge of force, mixed with blood, crazily surged out. Blood sacrifice array. Almost at the same time, the people behind him did the same. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1886. The thick stench of blood spread through the air. Several forces converged. Then, the skies suddenly darkened. Countless dark clouds converged from all directions. The sky, which was originally considered clear, suddenly turned gloomy. Strong winds blew, howling incessantly. Rumble. A huge sound exploded from behind the layers of clouds. Tianlei, like a silver snake, was faintly discernible as it slithered quickly. Rong Xiu raised his head to take a look, his phoenix eyes narrowing slightly. To be able to trigger Tianlei in such a short time, one could see how powerful it was. 13 suddenly thought of something, his eyes widening as he turned to look at Sun Yi. Big brother, wasn't this aura almost exactly the same as the one he felt on the day of the soul-gazing tribulation? Although he was busy breaking through back then, he still paid attention to the situation around him. On that day, aside from the numerous bolts of lightning that he had attracted, the people from the Black Sword sect had also attracted many bolts of lightning, causing a huge commotion. He vaguely felt that the Tianlei summoned by the two sides was somewhat different, but he didn't have time to distinguish what exactly was different. But now that he saw this scene again, he immediately recognized it. This was exactly the same as that day. A cold glint flashed across Sun Yi's indifferent and narrow eyes. He was also present that day, and as a bystander, he saw it even more clearly. He glanced at 13 and shook his head lightly, indicating that he didn't need to worry. Ink Sword sect wanted to trigger Tianlei to attack Master. This killing intent was too strong, to the point that they didn't even bother to conceal it and directly attacked. At this moment, Mo Yun indeed couldn't care less. In the past 2 years, the Black Sword sect had held a test every month. Every time, they would specially choose a secluded place and ensure that no one was watching before they began. Now, in broad daylight, directly activating the blood sacrifice formation in front of so many pairs of eyes would definitely attract a lot of attention. But there was no other way. Seeing that Chu Luiyue was still planning to continue splitting the mountain, Mo Yun didn't dare to guarantee how the situation would develop if he allowed her to continue like this. So now, he could only gamble. As long as Chu Luiyue was dealt with, the rest could be dealt with slowly. Thinking of this, Mo Yun did not hesitate to cut open his left palm. Blood flew out. A terrifying force surged out from his body. The people from the Ink Sword sect following behind him naturally attacked as well. On both sides of the golden barrier, countless blood-colored lights converged and intersected to form strange patterns. It was the image of the Black Sword sect's twin swords circling the moon. From afar, it looked like Rong Xiu's barrier had split the gigantic blood-colored pattern into two from the middle. The pincer attack from both sides caused the barrier to shake even more violently. Rumble. Finally, the first Tianlei came crashing down. Almost at the same time, the violently vibrating golden barrier suddenly shattered. Bang! For a moment, light scattered in all directions. Violent energy surged out in all directions. The blood-red patterns on both sides began to converge towards the center. At this moment, Chu Luiyue, who had just arrived at another mountain peak, also noticed the commotion. She raised her head and frowned slightly. A trace of impatience flashed across her eyes. There's really no end to this. Did the people from the Ink Sword sect finally react and intend to shed all pretense of cordiality with her? Sheng Guanyu. Now, everyone wants your life. I'd like to see how long you can be so arrogant. Nan Yuxing raised his head and looked. When he realized that the reason why the Ink Sword sect had set up such a huge formation was to kill Chu Luyue, he could not help but feel relieved. Chu Luyue glanced at him. A loser like you still has the mood to be so arrogant? If I were you, I'd probably die of shame after losing to a cultivator who's one level lower than me. Nan Yuxing's face immediately turned red. You. Also, your Yuan meridian was severed previously. Logically speaking, it should be impossible for you to fully recover. But you, not only did you fully recover in such a short period of time, you even broke through to become a god. Nan Yuxing, have you never thought about how strange this situation is? Chu Liuyue's question sounded like a joke to Nan Yuxing. I was able to recover because I'm lucky. And I have the help of an expert. Of course, a lowly person like you has no right to meet such an expert. You've never even heard of such an expert. Chu Luyue curled the corner of her mouth. She did not take his derogatory words to heart. Indeed, I've never seen such an expert. But, as a celestial physician, I've heard of a method that can quickly turn a crippled person into a genius. Are you interested in hearing it? Originally, Nan Yuxing did not want to waste his breath on Chu Luyue. However, the mysterious smile on her face made his heart tremble for some reason. Who wants to listen to your nonsense? He reprimanded coldly. Chu Luyue was not bothered by his attitude. She raised her eyebrows and suddenly said, Nan Yuxing, I won't hide it from you. From the moment we exchanged blows, I felt that the aura on your body was very familiar. Nan Yuxing sneered. You and I have already met in the Divine Ruins world. Isn't it normal for you to feel familiar with my aura? Chu Luyue smiled. Of course, I'm not talking about your aura when I say familiar. Nan Yuxing's heart skipped a beat. Chu Luyue continued to ask. Nan Yuxing, don't you feel it at all? Your Yuan meridian is obviously very different from the Yuan meridian you used to have. I don't believe that you can't even notice this. Nan Yuxing's legs suddenly went soft. He took a step back uncontrollably. His face turned deathly pale. What? What are you talking about? I don't understand. Don't try to mislead me with your lies. Shengguan Yu. You. Am I trying to mislead you with my lies, or are you unwilling to face reality? I'm afraid no one knows better than you, right? Chu Luyue interrupted him. Every word was like a sharp knife that harshly pierced into his heart. If I remember correctly, although Nanny's tongue was cut off, the Yuan meridian in her body is still intact. If you take it out and put it into another person's body, it won't be a waste. With every word Chu Luyue said, Nan Yuxing's face turned paler. His lips trembled as he muttered to deny it. But in his heart, countless guesses surged uncontrollably. It wasn't that he didn't think about how he recovered his Yuan meridian. But his father only said that he asked an expert for help, so he firmly believed it. In fact, did he really not have any doubts in his heart? Of course he did. But that guess was too terrifying. He didn't dare to think that way at all. He only talked about how he wanted to take revenge for Nanny, as if this was the only way to calm his restless heart a little. At this moment, Chu Liuyue's words finally unveiled the last layer of veil. Nan Yuxing, is your younger sister's Yuan meridian convenient for you? Translator, Noodletown Translations Editor, Noodletown Translations. Chapter 1887. Chu Liuyue's casual words were like a poisoned arrow that pierced into Nan Yuxing's heart. He staggered a few steps back and almost lost his balance. You're spouting nonsense. He reflexively shouted in a stern voice. What do you know? You don't know anything. What right do you have to spout nonsense? Because of his agitation, his voice was exceptionally hoarse and sharp. He stared at Chu Luyue with eyes that were about to pop out of their sockets. There seemed to be flames burning in his eyes. It looked like he couldn't wait to kill Chu Luyue on the spot and chew on his flesh and bones. Chu Luyue raised the corner of his lips. However, there wasn't a hint of a smile on his face. There was only coldness in his eyes. I'm just asking you a question. I didn't say anything. If it's fake, why are you so agitated? Nan Yuxing, who killed your biological sister, Nan Yi? Why don't you ask yourself, or ask your good father? Nan Yuxing was about to break down. He wanted to ignore Chu Liuyue's words. However, those words seemed to have gone crazy and kept reverberating in his mind. Countless questions surged in his mind at this moment. It wasn't that he didn't have doubts. However, how could he dare to ask? He didn't even dare to think about how he had recovered his Yuan meridian. Boom! Just as Nan Yuxing was in a daze, a blue flame suddenly transformed into a long whip under his body. It rushed up and tightly bound him. Nan Yuxing was shocked and subconsciously tried to break free. However, the flames suddenly exploded before he could break free. Boom! Boom! Instantly, countless sparks flew in all directions. Terrifying and scorching energy continuously bombarded Nan Yuxing's body. His figure was instantly surrounded by the exploding flames. First young master. Luo Yan and the others were shocked when they saw this scene. As they were still some distance away, they couldn't hear what Chu Liyue and Nan Yuxing said. In their opinion, the two of them had only said a few words before Chu Liyue attacked. This was considered a sneak attack. However, Nan Yuxing was a god. Logically speaking, he should have been able to dodge it. What happened to him just now? Quick! Save first young master. At the same time, he moved and rushed in Nan Yuxing's direction. The four elders behind him quickly followed behind him. However, before they could arrive, a bolt of lightning flashed in the sky and struck down. Its target was Chu Liyue. Under the influence of Tianlei's power, Luo Yan and the others. When he saw the Tianlei's landing spot, he had a look of s. Nan Yuxing was just a short distance away from Chu Liyue, so he would definitely suffer a huge impact if the lightning struck him. He suddenly turned his head and shouted at Mo Yun. Assistant sect leader Mo. My Nan family's young master is still there. How can you act so rashly? If such a bolt of heavenly thunder was added to the mix, the consequences would be unthinkable. When Mo Yun heard that, he frowned coldly. We want to kill Sheng Guanyu. He insisted on going there. Who can he blame? Since he knew that he didn't have the ability, he should have left. Nan Yuxing had been chasing after Chu Liyue for so long. Not only did he fail to stop her, he even allowed her to split the mountains. Mo Yun was very unhappy about this. He really looked down on this so-called young master of the Nan family. She looks like a god, but her actual combat strength can't even compare to Chu Liyue, who is a high god. If he stayed there, he would only be a hindrance to everyone. Mo Yun was also in an extremely sensitive state. Naturally, he was not polite with his words. In fact, even if Nan Yuxing died because of this, he wouldn't care at all. When he said this, the faces of the elders of the Nan family all changed. Everyone agreed to form an alliance. How could you say something like this? What's the point of forming an alliance? Nan Yuxing was the first young master of the Nan family and the only successor of Nan Yifan. Previously, he was seriously injured and was almost crippled. Nan Yifan had spent a lot of effort to help him recover and break through to the god realm. If he died here today, Luo Yan and the rest wouldn't be able to explain themselves. Mo Yun. Don't go overboard. We also want to kill Sheng Guanyu. But if you continue to act like this, don't blame us for being impolite. Luo Yan also didn't want to fight with Mo Yun at this time. But the other party was really too much. Facing Luo Yan's threat, Mo Yun responded with a cold smile. He didn't even look over. In fact, when he was about to use the blood sacrifice array, he had already decided to bury everyone here together with him. What was a mere Nan Yuxing to him? This battle was very laughable in the eyes of Sanson and the rest. Today has really broadened my horizons. A second ago, they said that they wanted to work together. The next moment, they turned against each other and became enemies. How exciting! Wuxiao sighed from the bottom of his heart. Before they could make a move, Majian's sect and Nan family had already stood up. It was simply laughable. Sanson waved her hand disapprovingly. It's normal operation. Don't worry about it. These two families didn't have any good intentions. It was expected that things would turn out like this. Big brother, should we make a move? He looked at Cini. Cini pondered for a moment and looked at Rongxiu. Does Her Highness think? Rongxiu looked up and glanced at Chu Luiyue. His thin lips curved slightly. No hurry. She hasn't played enough. Let's wait a little longer and let her play to her heart's content. It won't be too late to make a move then. Digression, I'm going out today and I'm not sure when I'll be back. So, I'll make up for it tomorrow. Speaking of which, I swore that I wouldn't write on New Year's Eve, but it seems like I won't be able to do it. The list of activities will be posted in the comments section tonight. The prizes will be distributed after the new year. I'll wear a mask when I go out. Everyone, please be careful and have a safe and healthy new year. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1888. Cini nodded. When the rest of the people heard this, they looked at each other and couldn't help but look at their own master. At this moment, she had already raised her sword again. Boom! Another dark blue flame gushed out from under the cracked mountain rocks. More and more flames appeared. Under the gloomy sky, they looked like balls of ghostly fire burning faintly, dyeing the dark and thick clouds with a faint blue color. The slender figure was extremely agile, shuttling through the undulating mountain range like a fairy. The flames seemed to be extremely obedient to her will as they danced. Master is really amazing. Yujio couldn't help but praise. Who knows how many people Majian's sect has sacrificed just for that azure peak. However, in front of Master, he didn't even put them in his eyes. From what I see, Master is really going to flip the entire peach blossom dock over. Master is naturally extraordinary when he makes a move. Wuxiao rubbed his chin and looked at the Tianlei that was still gathering in the sky. At first, he was still a little worried, but seeing that his big brother and the others didn't seem to care, his heart was basically settled. Shifang looked at them and then at the collapsing void. He rubbed his hands and muttered in a low voice. It said that the void in Peach Blossom Dock is chaotic. It seems like it's true. It was just a fierce battle, but it had already caused the spatial energy here to become chaotic. Countless turbulent flows flowed out recklessly. If the situation continued to worsen, it wouldn't be good. From the corner of his eye, Shifang saw that 13's expression was very calm. He couldn't help but nudge him with his elbow and whisper. 13, aren't you worried? Worried about what? 13 looked at him in surprise. Shifang pursed his lips. This void. I'm afraid it's going to completely shatter, I know. 13 nodded calmly. Although his realm wasn't as high as his big brother and the others, he had followed them for many years and seen and heard a lot. Naturally, his vision was different. He also knew what this meant. But isn't Master and big brother here? 13 rolled his eyes and coughed. His Highness is also quite powerful. With so many people around, he felt that there was nothing to worry about. If you really don't have the confidence, why are you still staying here? According to Master's temperament, she wouldn't stay in an unsafe place for long. Shifang was taken aback. Then, he thought about it carefully and felt that it made sense. That's true. No matter what, his master had been through hundreds of battles. It was impossible for him to not know the seriousness of the situation. In this situation, she still chose to stay here. This only proved that there was something more important to her here. Rumble. Another bolt of heavenly lightning struck. He viciously hacked at Chu Luiyue. Almost at the same time, Chu Luiyue jumped onto Dumpling's back. Whoosh! Dumpling spread its wings and flew quickly to the next mountain peak. Huge flames burst out from the mountaintop behind them. From afar, it was as if a phoenix had been reborn from blood. Damn it! Mo Yun was furious. They had already used the blood sacrifice array without caring about anything, but they still couldn't do anything to Chu Luiyue. That crimson gold heavenly phoenix's speed was too fast. Continue. Mo Yun ordered. His voice was hoarse and almost hysterical. Chu Luiyue had escaped from his hands time and time again, which had already made him extremely angry. He quickly circulated the force in his body and activated the blood sacrifice array. That huge blood-colored totem was like a sea of blood that stretched across the sky. The thick smell of blood quickly spread between heaven and earth. It was almost suffocating. The surging killing intent wantonly surged. Rumble. Low and heavy thunder rolled down from the clouds. It heavily smashed into everyone's ears. It shook everyone's heart. Several silver snake-like tianlei quickly gathered in the sky and immediately fell one after another. Rumble. A loud sound reverberated throughout the area. The wind was raging. The space was distorted even more. Chu Luiyue quickly turned around to take a look. The pitch-black ink-like pressure reflected the dazzling fire. She gently patted Dumpling's head. Tuanzi got the hint and stopped quickly. At this moment, they had stopped at the top of a mountain. Those tianlei arrived in an instant. The distance between the two sides was rapidly shortened. Chu Luiyue raised her head slightly and moved her wrists. However, her feet didn't move. She only looked up at the tianlei. Her black hair was already swept up by the wind, dancing in the air. Seeing this scene, almost everyone was shocked. Mo Yun frowned and couldn't help but mutter in a low voice, "Is she crazy?" At this time, it was too late to escape, but she actually stopped just like that. Was she scared silly, or did she know that she couldn't escape, so she simply gave up? But no matter what the situation was, this action was no different from courting death. Mo Yun was stunned at first, then he sneered. Looks like she's really tired of living. Previously, he had thought that Chu Luiyue would more or less try to avoid it. With the strength she had displayed previously, coupled with the help of Rong Xiu and the others, she might be able to hold on for a while. But now that she didn't want to live anymore, she couldn't blame others. Thinking of this, Mo Yun glanced at Rong Xiu and the others. A trace of suspicion flashed in his cold eyes. Chu Luiyue was Rong Xiu's princess consort, and it was rumored that he doted on this princess consort a lot. In order to marry her smoothly, he didn't even hesitate to offend the Yuntian Tower's patriarch and the other respected elders. Logically speaking, he should be very worried when he saw Chu Luiyue in danger. But at this moment, he didn't seem to be worried. And Sin Yi and the others beside him, she actually followed him and stood there without doing anything, not moving at all. Could it be that they had all become idiots as well? But such doubts and confusion only flashed through Mo Yun's mind. The deafening sound of the heavenly lightning striking down quickly snatched away his attention. He turned his head and focused his attention on Chu Luiyue again. An incomparably bright and imposing tianlei fell with a loud bang. It accurately landed on the mountain where Chu Luiyue was. Crack. A huge crack appeared on the mountain. More than half of the mountain peak shook violently. At the same time, another cluster of blue flames quickly surged out from within. Lightning and fire merged, and the power of both sides fought fiercely. The figure that always stood as straight as a pine tree was also swallowed at this moment. The corners of Mo Yun's mouth lifted into a cold smile. The tianlei triggered by the blood sacrifice array was extremely powerful. Even a venerable god expert had to be careful when dealing with it, let alone a venerable god like Chu Luiyue. This time, she was definitely going to die. However, in the next moment, a figure suddenly rushed out from the flames. It went straight to the sky. Mo Yun's smile finally froze on his face. Digression, insomnia. Increasing the dosage of melatonin didn't have any effect. He barely fell asleep at around 4 in the morning and woke up at 7 in the morning. At this moment, he couldn't open his eyes and his mind was in a mess. I can't update on time today. I will try my best to finish the 6 chapters before 8 in the evening. Everyone, read it together later. Most importantly, I wish everyone a happy New Year's Eve. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1889. That dark blue fire surrounded Chu Liuyue's body. Not only did it not cause her any harm, but it even blocked most of the lightning strength for her. She rushed out of the place where the flames intertwined without any harm. Then, she quickly flew forward with Dumpling. Her speed was extremely fast. The violent energy surging around her couldn't even slow her down in the slightest. Mo Yun's expression was dull, as if he had been slapped a few times. His face was burning with pain. The flames on the mountain peak were so bright that it hurt their eyes and they could not look at it directly. Plus, Mo Yun was in a state of extreme shock, so he did not see that the black shield in Chu Liuyue's hand flashed past. At this moment, his mind was completely blank. It was fine that the Tianlei did not hit Chu Liuyue at the beginning. But that strike just now had truly struck her from the top of her head. Why was Chu Liuyue still safe and sound? It was the flame, it was the flame. A white light suddenly flashed across Mo Yun's mind. He suddenly realized. Chu Liuyue had indeed controlled the strange blue flames at the foot of the mountain. The thing buried below was definitely already in her hands. Mo Yun was extremely angry and resentful. They had stayed here for almost 2 years and finally confirmed that there was something hidden under Lan Qingfeng. In the end, before they could do anything, Chu Liuyue beat them to it. More importantly, when she made her move, they knew that not only Lan Qingfeng, but the surrounding mountains were also inextricably linked to that thing. After suffering for so long, they did not know how many casualties they had paid. In the end, Chu Liuyue, who had just arrived at Peach Blossom Cove, beat them to it. How could Mo Yun take this lying down? He suddenly bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood sacrifice array in the sky suddenly surged violently again. A thick black mist was faintly discernible within. But it only appeared for a moment and disappeared in a flash. Rong Xiu seemed to have sensed something and looked up. The black fog had quietly disappeared and could not be seen. But that trace of cold aura still made Rong Xiu squint his eyes slightly. This aura was really familiar. He retracted his gaze and looked at Mo Yun again, deep in thought. Until now, Mo Yun had not really used the power of his bloodline. He would rather cause great damage to himself and sacrifice the blood in his heart, but the bloodline totem did not appear between his eyebrows. Interesting, the sect leader of Black Sword sect is also surnamed Mo? Rong Xiu suddenly asked. His voice was always cold and low, with a trace of nobility that could not be disobeyed. When it fell into one's ears, one would almost automatically give an answer without warning. How did you? Mo Yun subconsciously spat out these 2 words, and then suddenly became alert. Rong was tricking him. He immediately kept quiet and swallowed the rest of his words. But in Rong Xiu's eyes, this was already a tacit agreement. As expected, Rong Xiu's thin lips slightly raised, but the corners of his eyes and brows were slightly cold. Previously, he felt that there was something wrong with Black Sword sect, as if it had something to do with that side. Taking advantage of the chaos, he immediately got the answer. Looking at Rong Xiu's expression, Mo Yun secretly gritted his teeth. This man was extremely cunning and had many tricks up his sleeve. If he really guessed something, it was within his expectations. But, for some reason, Rong Xiu did not do anything other than symbolically blocking them. He did not seem to be worried about Chu Liuyue's safety at all, and only watched calmly. Was he too confident in Chu Liuyue, or did he have other preparations? Mo Yun could not figure it out. Rong Xiu was after all famous, and was definitely not easy to deal with. But now, the one that needed to be killed the most was Chu Liuyue. He could not let her continue to act presumptuously here. Thinking of this, Mo Yun forced himself to calm down, and poured all his power into the blood sacrifice formation. Rumble. The heavenly lightning, which was even more magnificent and powerful than before, rolled down. Almost half of the sky was already illuminated by this dazzling light. And those Tianlei's target was Chu Luiyue. This black sword sect does have some ability. On top of a steep mountain, Chu Luiyue stood halfway up the mountain, narrowing her eyes slightly, and looked at the sky not far away. This formation was much larger than the one they accidentally encountered on the day of 13's breakthrough. Even if several venerable gods joined forces, they might not be able to achieve this, not to mention that there were only a few venerable gods in Black Sword sect. Including Mo Yun, the number of venerable gods in Black Sword sect was less than that of the Nan family. But Chu Luiyue was certain that even if those venerable gods of the Nan family worked together, they would not be able to trigger Tianlei of this scale. At the end of the day, the problem lay in the so-called blood sacrifice formation, and the group of people from Black Sword sect themselves. Moreover, other than being able to trigger Tianlei, they could also control where the Tianlei would fall. She had purposely run left and right a few times just to test the waters. In the end, the Tianlei could indeed follow her and fall. This kind of ability was not something that everyone could have. That was why Chu Luiyue muttered such a sentence. However, after realizing this, she didn't feel the slightest bit of fear. Instead, her starry eyes sparkled with excitement. If that's really the case, that's great. Dumpling glanced sideways at her. Sensing her restless emotions, Dumpling became excited as well. She flapped her wings, and reddish gold flames burned fiercely around her. If Mo Yun and the others saw Chu Luiyue's expression and knew what she was thinking, they would think that she had gone crazy. They had never seen anyone so happy when there was no one chasing after them. They were clearly in a life and death situation, but she did not seem to care. In fact, she was happy and excited. If this was not a problem, then what was? Chu Luiyue looked at the approaching Tianlei and slowly tightened her grip on Scarlet Heaven. The next moment, the corners of her lips lifted slightly. Dumpling. Let's go. Before she finished speaking, Dumpling had already flapped her wings and rose into the air. She headed straight for the depths of the forest. Trying to escape. It's not that easy. Mo Yun gritted his teeth. Every word seemed to have been squeezed out from between his teeth. She did not want to escape before, but now she wanted to leave. It was too late. Then, under the gaze of several pairs of eyes, the Tianlei fell one after another, almost nailing Chu Luiyue to death in this mountain range. The terrifying energy formed invisible waves that spread out in all directions. In an instant, the trees collapsed, and countless pink and white peach blossoms and emerald green leaves fluttered in the air. The figure wrapped in reddish gold flames quickly shuttled through. She left all the Tianlei behind. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1890. Boom. 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 Several mountains were hit hard. The mountains shook and huge rocks rolled down. Huge fissures crisscrossed across the mountain range. Following that, clusters of flames spewed out from the cracks. The temperature between heaven and earth instantly rose. Soon, numerous streams of light flew out from the burning flames. They mixed with the countless Tianlei flames and headed straight for Chu Luiyue. Bang! 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 The black shield blocked in front of her, blocking all the violent energy. At the same time, more and more rust began to peel off. Streaks of light quickly disappeared. The secret text on the shield also began to reveal its original appearance. The terrifying energy quickly numbed Chu Luiyue's arm. The black shield became heavier and heavier, causing her burden to become heavier and heavier. Luckily, Dumpling was there, so her speed did not decrease too much. One person and one beast jumped around in the forest just like that. In just a short while, the entire mountain range had been bombarded by the heavenly lightning and was in shambles. It was a mess as far as the eye could see. Countless blue flames burned on top of the mountain, almost lighting up half of the sky. Scorching hot air rushed towards them. Even though they were still some distance away from the flames, they could still feel the heat on their faces. With a faint burning pain. When Luo Yan saw this scene, he was both shocked and angry, and his heart almost went cold. Nan Yuxing was still trapped in the flames and had not come out yet. He did not know what the situation was like. He made up his mind and was about to move forward. The elders behind him immediately stopped him. Luo Yan. What are you doing? Luo Yan frowned. Eldest young master is still trapped there. If we don't move now, eldest young master will most likely die. The elders looked at each other. Actually, how could they not know this? But, the situation now is too dangerous. If you go rashly, not only will you not be able to help, you will also lose your life. I think we should think of another way. Another way? Now, can you think of any other useful methods? Luo Yan asked. The elder who was trying to dissuade him suddenly stopped talking. The remaining elders also had troubled looks on their faces. Luo Yan glanced at them indifferently. You guys wait here, I'll go personally. Nan Yuxing was the only successor of the patriarch. Before they left, the patriarch had repeatedly warned them to protect him. Now that Nan Yuxing was in trouble and was facing a life and death crisis, how could Luo Yan sit by and do nothing? Even if he knew that the road ahead was dangerous, he still had to go. We're going too. The other elder hesitated for a moment before responding immediately. At this time, there was really no need to hesitate on this matter. Even if they knew that there was danger ahead and that their efforts were likely to be in vain, they could not slack off on what they should do. Otherwise, if something really happened to Nan Yuxing, the situation they would face when they returned might not be any better. Yes. Let's go together. This way, our chances of winning will definitely be greater. The rest of the people nodded in agreement. Luo Yan glanced at them and nodded. Then, he turned around and rushed towards the direction where Nan Yuxing was trapped. The elders looked at each other with complicated expressions. But in the end, they didn't say much and chose to follow. At this time, the area where the mountain fire was burning had greatly expanded. The closer they got, the more they could feel the terrifying burning pain and heat. The clusters of blue flames seemed to want to burn the entire heaven and earth into ashes as they jumped wildly. Even though Luo Yan was already a god-level expert, he still felt extremely threatened at this time. Ordinary barriers couldn't stop this heat wave at all. Even the surrounding void started to collapse, and the violent spatial turbulence wreaked havoc everywhere. It was almost impossible to maintain the barrier around them for a long time. In a short while, Luo Yan chose to give up on the barrier and rushed forward at full speed. He couldn't help but look in the direction of Chu Luiyue. That woman was standing on the back of the crimson gold celestial phoenix. Her dress was fluttering, and her eyes were bright. There was not the slightest bit of fear on her face. There was only endless battle intent. When he met that determined and persistent gaze, Luo Yan's heart felt as if it had been smashed by something. This woman was really not afraid. Even though the mountain fire was raging and Tianlei was bursting, she stood alone without any fear. How could an ordinary person have such courage and fighting spirit? Other than that, Luo Yan had another question in his heart. He was only at the edge now, but he already felt as if he was being roasted by fire. It was very uncomfortable. And Chu Luiyue was in the center of the countless flames. How did she endure it? This thought only flashed through Luo Yan's mind for a moment before it was quickly suppressed. Because he didn't have much time and energy to care about these things now. Right now, he only wanted to save Nan Yuxing as soon as possible. When he was close enough, Luo Yan finally heard a weak cry for help. His heart skipped a beat. This voice belonged to Nan Yuxing. 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 Luo Yan hurried in the direction of the voice. He had a high status in the Nan family, and he would call Nan Yuxing and Nan Yi by their names in private. Although he doted on Nan Yi the most, he also took care of Nan Yuxing. Now that Nan Yi was gone, he was naturally more concerned about Nan Yuxing. If something really happened to Nan Yuxing, Luo Yan took a deep breath. A long crack appeared on the mountain under their feet. The flames were burning fiercely. Vaguely, a figure could be seen struggling in it. Luo Yan's heart was in his mouth. Yuxing. He originally wanted to rush over directly, but the flames were burning too fiercely, and he couldn't get close at all. After hesitating for a moment, Luo Yan's force turned into a whip and flew out fiercely. Slap. The sound of the whip breaking through the air was extremely loud. In the next moment, the long whip flew into the flames and tightly wrapped around Nan Yuxing's waist. Luo Yan pulled hard. A figure wrapped in flames instantly flew out. At this moment, Nan Yuxing was covered in burns and his injuries were extremely serious. He curled up on the ground and trembled violently. Low whimpers and moans came from his throat. It seemed like he didn't have any strength to fight anymore. Luo Yan's heart was in a knot. With such injuries, even if he could barely survive, in the future, he would probably, eldest young master. When the other elders saw this situation, their expressions changed. It wasn't that they didn't think that Nan Yuxing wouldn't be able to escape this calamity, but the situation in front of them was still beyond their imagination. Luo Yan composed himself. Extinguish the fire on eldest young master first. Before he finished speaking, a bloody wound suddenly appeared on Nan Yuxing's arm, who was lying on the ground. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1891. The wound was about an inch long and extremely deep. Even his bones could be seen. Luo Yan hesitated for a moment. Actually, such a scene was nothing to him and the other elders who were used to seeing life and death. The reason why they were so surprised was because the wound had appeared too suddenly. In that instant, there was no external interference. It was obvious that there was something wrong with Nan Yuxing's body. Why would such a wound appear on a normal person's body? Then, before they could react, a similar wound appeared on Nan Yuxing's other hand. Perhaps it was because he had been burned in the fire for too long, but most of his hands had shrunk. However, that bloody wound still appeared out of nowhere. The twisted skin and muscles seemed to have been cut open by something sharp. There was no blood dripping, but it still made one feel uneasy. Luo Yan, the elders looked at Luo Yan subconsciously. Although they were all elders, their statuses were slightly inferior to Luo Yan's. Therefore, when something happened, they immediately asked for Luo Yan's opinion. However, Luo Yan's heart was in a mess. His eyes were fixed on the two wounds on Nan Yuxing's body. His expression was terrifyingly solemn. With just one look, he realized that there was something wrong with Nan Yuxing's body. From the looks of it, it was very likely that the force in his body had gone out of control. A god reverend's body had accumulated a large amount of energy. Once it went out of control, it would wreak havoc in the body. The consequences would be unimaginable. Just as he was deep in thought, a wound appeared on Nan Yuxing's shoulder. Moreover, the wound on his arm was expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. Nan Yuxing curled up on the ground. He had lost consciousness and was trembling all over. Save me, his face was severely burned and he couldn't open his eyes. Only the intermittent voices in his ears allowed him to know that Luo Yan and the others were by his side. Nan Yuxing relied on his last bit of willpower and murmured for help. Luo Yan's heart was in a knot and his brows were tightly knitted. Of course, he wanted to save Nan Yuxing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken such a huge risk to come here. But, in this situation, what should he do? Seeing that the wounds on Nan Yuxing's body were increasing, Luo Yan could only hurriedly extinguish the sparks on his body and plan to bring him back first. However, before he could touch Nan Yuxing's body, he suddenly heard Nan Yuxing's voice. I'm sorry. Luo Yan abruptly stopped and subconsciously looked at Nan Yuxing's face. Nan Yuxing's face was so badly burned that it was almost unrecognizable. However, Luo Yan could clearly hear the deep pain and guilt in those words. He stared blankly for a while and did not move. Sorry? Why did Nan Yuxing suddenly say that? Was he blaming himself for not protecting Nan Yi earlier? But it didn't sound that tone. It was as if he had done something wrong to Nan Yi. Luo, seeing that Luo Yan had suddenly stopped moving, seemingly deep in thought, the elders felt a little strange. This voice brought Luo Yan back to his senses. I'm fine. He hurriedly replied. Just as he was about to continue, he suddenly sensed a wave of energy overflowing from Nan Yuxing's wounds. This energy was very mottled, but it was mixed with an extremely familiar aura. Luo Yan's eyes widened. He looked at Nan Yuxing in shock. This aura. He almost couldn't control himself. He quickly reached out and grabbed Nan Yuxing's wrist. Hey, Luo Yan, what's wrong? Luo Yan's expression was very strange. He couldn't help but make the few elders beside him worried. He was clearly fine just now. Why did he suddenly? However, at this moment, Luo Yan could no longer hear their voices. He separated a part of his force and forced it into Nan Yuxing's body. As expected, the energy in Nan Yuxing's body was completely messed up. But the key point was, Luo Yan was clearly familiar with this energy. And that Yuan meridian. Luo Yan's hand trembled slightly. His face turned pale and the veins on his forehead popped out. A deep sense of anger radiated from his body. The few elders sensed danger. They glanced at each other and didn't dare to ask any more questions. Luo Yan rarely revealed such an expression. They didn't know what was going on. Just as they were filled with doubts, they saw Luo Yan let go of Nan Yuxing's wrist and suddenly choked his neck. Luo Yan. Eldest young master. This sudden turn of events caused the remaining elders to be stunned. They couldn't help but open their mouths in a panicked manner. However, Luo Yan's eyes were scarlet. There was a trace of malevolence in his expression. It was truly terrifying. He stared at Nan Yuxing and said word by word. Speak. How did he die? The moment he said that, the elders were all shocked. What did Luo Yan mean by suddenly asking eldest young master this question? Could it be that Nan Yi's death was related to eldest young master? But how was that possible? Nan Yuxing was originally in a half-dead state. After being provoked by Luo Yan, he became more awake. When he met Luo Yan's gaze, a strong sense of fear surged into his heart. Nan Yuxing muttered almost reflexively. I don't know, bang. Luo Yan suddenly made his move. He grabbed Nan Yuxing's neck and slammed his head to the ground. Tell me the truth. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1892. Luo Yan was ruthless. This time, Nan Yuxing's head was smashed open. Blood splattered everywhere. Nan Yuxing's head buzzed and he almost fainted. The elders standing by the side were also completely dumbfounded. Why did Luo Yan suddenly attack so heavily? Nan Yuxing was the eldest young master. If anything happened to him, how were they going to explain it when they returned? Luo Yan's attitude was also very strange. Just a moment ago, he didn't care about his own safety and wanted to save Nan Yuxing. In the end, for some reason, his attitude suddenly took a 180-degree turn. From the looks of it, not only did he not intend to save Nan Yuxing, he even wanted to kill Nan Yuxing personally. Luo Yan. Calm down. An elder finally couldn't stand it anymore and spoke up. But before he could say anything else, Luo Yan turned around and glanced at him. This glance was extremely cold. It was as if it was wrapped in deep anger and hatred. That elder's heart skipped a beat and he couldn't say anything to persuade him. They had never seen Luo Yan like this, in the entire Nan family, Luo Yan's strength was one of the top few people. His status was noble, but his personality was very indifferent. He rarely interfered in any of the Nan family's decisions and would only intervene when it involved Nan. This time, he suddenly acted like this. Could it be that he was sure that Nan's death was really related to Nan Yuxing? But, how was this possible? Nan Yuxing was Nan's biological brother. Luo Yan retracted his gaze and grabbed Nan Yuxing's neck, forcing him to raise his head. Speak. What's going on with your Yuan meridian? Nan Yuxing's heart turned cold. Luo Yan actually asked such a question, so what Chu Luiyue said before was all true. Nan Yuxing's mind was in a mess. Coupled with his serious injuries, the blood in his body surged and he spat out a mouthful of blood. But he couldn't spit out a single word. His guess was confirmed and his heart was like dead ashes. Seeing his reaction, how could Luo Yan not understand? He slowly tightened his grip and a strong killing intent surged out from his eyes. Bits and pieces of the past flashed through his mind in an incomparably chaotic manner. He had always felt that Nan's death was a little strange. However, due to his overwhelming grief and lack of evidence, he was certain that the mysterious man he saw before he fainted that day was from the Yuntian Tower. Because of this, he hated Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue to the core. When Nan Yuxing mentioned that he wanted to come to the Peach Blossom Cove to seek revenge, he agreed without hesitation. But he never would have thought, the real person who killed Nan was actually someone else. The Yuan meridian and energy in Nan Yuxing's body clearly belonged to Nan. No wonder he could recover in such a short time. He even made a breakthrough. So all of this was because he had to bear Nan's life. Now that the truth was in front of his eyes, everything that had happened before seemed very wrong. Now that he thought about it, he should have sensed that something was wrong. However, his eyes had long been blinded by hatred, so how could he see those things? Until now. Everything was revealed. Luo Yan suddenly laughed. He truly felt that he was ridiculous, and he also felt that Nan Yuxing was ridiculous. They all said that they were here to avenge Nan, but in reality, they had found the wrong person. Especially Nan Yuxing, he was simply a thief crying thief. What a joke. That smiling face kept flashing in front of Luo Yan's eyes. His eyes turned cold and he slowly tightened his grip. Nan Yuxing sensed danger and instinctively wanted to escape. However, the energy in his body was raging wildly, and his internal organs were almost severely damaged. He didn't even have the strength to stand up, so how could he talk about anything else? Therefore, he could only gasp for breath and tremble in vain. Luo Yan's face was expressionless. Luo Yan, the few elders also felt that his condition was very strange. Just as they were about to open their mouths to persuade him, they heard the crisp sound of bones cracking. Crack. The few of them were horrified. Luo Yan had broken Nan Yuxing's neck. He wanted his life. Nan Yuxing's head tilted and his body trembled. Soon, he stopped breathing. There was dead silence. Everyone did not think that Luo Yan was actually really so heartless. He killed Nan Yuxing without hesitation. Because they were too shocked, the few elders all subconsciously held their breaths. Their eyes were filled with deep shock. However, Luo Yan acted as if nothing had happened and stood up. He raised his arm and flicked his wrist. Nan Yuxing's corpse was thrown back into the burning flames by him. In the blink of an eye, it was completely devoured. The whole process was smooth and Luo Yan didn't hesitate at all. Then, he turned around and looked at the remaining elders. His eyes were cold and gloomy like never before. Eldest young master was defeated by Sheng Guanyu and died in the Sea of Fire. The elders understood that this was an order. Luo Yan had killed the first young master in front of them. How could he still say that it was Sheng Guanyu who did it? Yes. Yes. We will avenge the young master. One of the elders was the first to react. His face was pale and he said with a trembling voice. Luo Yan nodded in satisfaction. For eldest young master, we will go through fire and water. Today, even if we have to sacrifice our lives, we will not hesitate. What do you think? What else can we do? You've already said so much. Can others still refute you? The elders nodded their heads stiffly. Even though they had seen many storms, this was the first time they had experienced something like this. Luo Yan nodded. Whoever kills Shengguan, you will be the hero of the Nan family. In the distance, Chu Luyue, who had just dodged Tian Lei, also noticed the situation here and narrowed his eyes dangerously. Luo Yan killed Nan Yuxing with his own hands and planned to push the blame to her. Her red lips curled into an extremely cold smile. She wasn't surprised that Luo Yan killed Nan Yuxing. She had long seen that Luo Yan had feelings for Nan Yi. Although he hid it very well, some things could be seen at a glance. But she wasn't happy that he wanted to drag her down with him. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1893. As if sensing her gaze, Luo Yan suddenly raised his head and looked over. The two of them were far apart, but at this moment, when their eyes met, they could clearly see the emotions surging in each other's eyes. Chu Luyue raised her eyebrows slightly. Luo Yan, Nan Yuxing was killed by you. Everyone saw it clearly. Aren't you too much to push the blame onto me? Luo Yan's expression was cold. You were the one who caused Nan Yuxing's injuries, and he died in this strange flame in the end. What's wrong with me saying that you killed him? Chu Luyue laughed. After hearing Luo Yan's words and knowing his plan, Chu Luyue knew that this person had gone mad. There was no need to continue talking to him. Nan Yuxing was Nan Yifan's only son. In order to save Nan Yuxing, Nan Yifan was even willing to give up his other daughter's life. This showed how much Nan Yuxing valued his only heir. Now, Nan Yuxing was dead. Whoever killed him would become Nan Yifan's mortal enemy. Offending Nan Yifan was undoubtedly offending the entire Nan family. No one would be able to bear the consequences of such a serious incident. Luo Yan dared to do this in broad daylight because he was sure that the elders would not dare to tell anyone about this. Moreover, one side was his own people, and the other side was his enemy. Who would Nan Yifan believe? The answer was self-evident. Boom! Another bolt of heavenly lightning struck. This time, it was even stronger than the previous one. It almost tore apart the dark clouds that had accumulated in the sky. Chu Luyue looked up. Just in time. As soon as she thought about it, Tuanzi immediately understood and flapped its wings to fly up. This time, Dumpling headed straight for the mountains further away. Chu Luyue lowered her eyes and looked at the black shield in her hand. After the fierce battle just now, more than 10 pieces of rust had fallen off. The efficiency was much higher than before. However, the rust that fell off was only 1/10 of the entire shield. She could see that the secret text on it was gradually revealing itself. Although he could only see the tip of the iceberg for now, Chu Luyue had a clear premonition in his heart. Once the rust on it completely peeled off, it would definitely shine brightly. A faint lustrous glow lingered on the black shield, faintly discernible. Suddenly, a sharp whistling sound came from the front. Chu Luyue suddenly looked up. Not far in front of him, the void was collapsing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The closer half of the mountain started to shake violently under the impact of the spatial turbulence. Some of the mountain rocks began to roll towards the strange black clouds. A terrifying suction force was emitted from within. It was as if it wanted to devour everything. Chu Luyue's heart tightened. The void energy of the Peach Blossom Cove was chaotic and could easily collapse. Now that such an intense battle had broken out, it was normal for such a situation to occur. However, the speed of the collapse still exceeded Chu Luyue's expectations. She frowned slightly and decided to let Dumpling change the direction. However, at this moment, the black shield suddenly emitted a faint buzzing sound. Chu Luyue's heart shook. The black shield's reaction proved that there was an extremely important force hidden under the mountain. She had to go. Tuanzi turned her head and glanced at her. Chu Lua squinted her eyes, then suddenly lifted herself up and jumped. She actually went straight for the mountain alone. Almost at the same time, an astonishing suction force wrapped around her from all directions. The moment her feet landed on the mountain, her body suddenly fell. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared into the void that had already collapsed beyond recognition. Rongxiu's eyes narrowed. Digression, I'm going to slack off and eat the New Year's Eve dinner. I wish everyone a happy new year. Be healthy and safe. Be victorious in everything. In the future, we will continue to be together every day. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1894. With a thought, his figure instantly disappeared from where he was. Master. 13 and the rest also became anxious. Just as they were about to move, Cin stopped them. Wait and see. Cin Yi's words were concise. Biyao looked at the terrifying scene and couldn't help but ask. Big brother, are we still not doing anything at this time? The situation on Master's side seemed to be really dangerous. Yes. The void is collapsing. Before long, the entire peach blossom dock will. Yujio gripped her wooden sword tightly, her heart burning with anxiety. Cin Yi's expression was as calm as ever. If you go over now, you'll only cause trouble for Master. Why don't you just stay here? Biyao and the rest were conflicted. On one hand, they were worried about Master. On the other hand, they trusted Big Brother. Seeing Cin Yi like this, it seemed, they really didn't need to worry. Sigh, don't worry. I don't dare to say anything about other places, but here. Master will definitely be fine. Sanson, who was at the side, also advised. He had personally witnessed the power of Master and that black shield. That day, it had almost burned his small space. Although the flames on the mountains looked scary, thinking about it carefully, wasn't Master the one who set them off herself? Sanson could vaguely guess what Master was looking for. From the start, she deliberately ran over here and used Tianlei, which was triggered by the blood sacrifice array of Majin sect, to split the mountains. Wasn't everything planned by Master long ago? And Rongxiu's reaction earlier was clearly to cooperate with Master. The power of Peach Blossom Dock space is very chaotic. Whenever there's a problem, such a situation will occur. However, it usually doesn't take long to automatically recover. Moreover, Master has many trump cards. Such a small fluctuation isn't enough to hurt her. You can put your hearts back into your stomachs. Although Sanson spent most of his attention and energy on business, he was still very trustworthy when he was serious at critical moments. Right now, apart from Cin Yi, he had the highest status among the 13 guards present. Hearing him say this, Biyao and the rest exchanged glances. Although they could see the worry in each other's eyes, they didn't say anything in the end and nodded in agreement. Look! 13 suddenly exclaimed, attracting everyone's attention. Several pairs of eyes looked over. At this moment, Rongxiu's figure suddenly appeared above a mountain peak in the distance. The wind blew, and the corners of his snow-white clothes fluttered in the wind, making him look like an immortal. A golden flame suddenly gushed out from his palm and transformed into countless stars that scattered in all directions. From afar, it looked like a barrier, but also like a giant net. Condense. A low and cold voice spread far and wide in this dark and bitterly cold world. As soon as he finished speaking, the collapsing space suddenly froze. The black spatial crack seemed to have been enveloped by the giant net formed by the golden light dots, and it stopped collapsing. At this moment, the scene seemed to freeze. Time and space seemed to have stopped flowing. Everyone who saw this scene was shocked. The collapse of the void was caused by the collision of internal and external forces. It was not something that could be controlled by human strength. Otherwise, Peach Blossom Cove would not have remained unoccupied for so many years. However, at this moment, Rongxiu directly froze the collapsing void and forcefully suppressed the rampaging space turbulence. This was simply, how is this possible? Mo Yun's eyes suddenly widened, and they were filled with horror. Just a moment ago, when he saw Chu Liuyue's figure being swallowed by the void, he was secretly delighted. He had stayed here for so long, and he had seen many similar scenes. No matter who it was, once they were sucked into it, their ending would be extremely miserable. There was a 99% chance that they would be crippled even if they did not die. It would be best if Chu Liyue could die inside directly. If not, even if he managed to escape alive, he would not be able to make it. At that time, wouldn't he be at their mercy? It would be up to them to kill or torture him. However, who knew that Rongxiu, who had been watching from the sidelines, would suddenly make a move? And his strength was so powerful. Looking at the tall figure standing in the air, Mo Yun's heart suddenly flashed with a trace of inexplicable fear. One must know that even he might not be able to do this. However, Rongxiu sighed, with just a light lift of his hand, he did it easily. As if it was effortless. Mo Yun had long heard many rumors about Rongxiu. He knew that this man was not easy to deal with. However, he did not expect him to be so heaven-defying. Such strength had long surpassed the strength of an ordinary venerable god expert. On the other side, Luo Yan and the others who were about to give chase also stopped in their tracks when they saw this scene, and their expressions were complicated. Forcefully freezing the collapsing void. How did that Rongxiu do it? An elder said in disbelief, almost unable to believe what he saw. They were also venerable gods, but if they were to make a move, they would definitely not be able to do so. If he's so powerful, why didn't he make a move earlier? If he really wants to fight with us, I'm afraid it'll be another tough battle. Another elder was also deeply worried. Previously, their attention was focused on Chu Liyue, and they did not pay much attention to other things. However, when Rongxiu made a move, they finally realized that something was wrong. Since he's so powerful, isn't it intentional that he's been watching from the sidelines? Is he too confident in Chu Liyue, or is there another reason? They could not figure out these things, and they became more and more flustered. Moreover, the strength that Rongxiu had displayed had far exceeded their expectations. Luo Yan stared at Rongxiu's figure, and his hands gradually clenched into fists. If Rongxiu stopped him, then what happened later would be difficult to proceed according to plan. Now, he vaguely understood why Nan Yifan was so afraid of Rongxiu. Boom. The blood sacrifice formation hung in the sky, and blood qi filled the sky. Crazy power wreaked havoc everywhere, and Tianlei was still falling one after another. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1895. The next moment, Chu Liuyue's figure rushed out of the dazzling golden light that enveloped the sky. Everyone immediately looked over. The woman's red dress fluttered in the wind. She had black hair, snow-white skin, and bright eyes. The corners of her eyes and the tip of her brows were filled with intense battle intent. She was completely unscathed. For a moment, everyone present had different reactions. The people from the 13th naturally heaved a sigh of relief. However, the people from the Black Sword sect and the Nan family had dark expressions. It was one thing for Rongxiu to be so heaven-defying, but how could Chu Liyue, a mere high god, be so strong as well? Even her eminence might not be able to escape unscathed from the collapsing void. How could she, more importantly, the place where Chu Liyue was swallowed by the void and charged out of it was not the same? There was a deep valley in between. This. Why does it seem like Rongxiu already knew that she would come out from there and purposely went there early to wait? That's impossible, right? Who would be able to guess this? Who doesn't know that once a cultivator enters the void, even they don't know where they will be sent to? Not to mention Rongxiu. But the current situation doesn't seem right, the elders of the Nan family discussed in low voices. Luo Yan didn't say anything, but his expression turned even uglier. The more the other party acted like this, the more difficult it was to deal with. He raised his head to take a look. The blood sacrifice array was still operating. People from the Black Sword sect were rushing over and joining in. This caused the blood sacrifice array to become stronger and stronger. But, even though the Tianlei had almost completely destroyed the rolling mountain range, Chu Luiyue was still safe and sound. This couple was simply one weirder than the other. Screech. Tuanzi let out a clear cry, drew a reddish-gold ray of light in midair, and rapidly flew toward Chu Luiyue. Everyone had mixed feelings. At first, they thought that Chu Luiyue was able to dodge so many attacks because of the reddish-gold celestial phoenix's help. But what happened now was like a slap to their faces. Even if Chu Luiyue relied on his own strength, he could still move around like a fish in water. Rong Xiu. Chu Luiyue finally heaved a sigh of relief after escaping from the chaotic space and the thick darkness. When that familiar handsome and enchanting face came into view, her hanging heart immediately calmed down a lot. Rong Xiu reached out to her. You, come here. Chu Luiyue walked forward. Crack. Suddenly, the sound of something breaking could be heard. Chu Luiyue was shocked and quickly looked over. It was the void that was forcefully frozen by Rong Xiu, and there was a crack. Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes and immediately went forward. He grabbed Chu Luiyue's hand and took her into his arms. The next moment, just as he turned around, the space behind him finally broke free from the huge golden net and collapsed again. Countless fine golden lights scattered in all directions. A terrifying force rushed toward the surroundings. Rong Xiu took a step and already moved to another position with Chu Luiyue. Dumpling followed closely behind. It flapped its wings and left behind a flame to block that force. Although it couldn't completely block that violent force, it still gave Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu enough time to leave. A loud bang was heard. Chu Luiyue leaned on Rong Xiu's arms and looked over his shoulder. The space was collapsing more and more. More and more black was spreading between heaven and earth. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly tightened. Rong Xiu's strength could only temporarily suppress a small area. But looking at the current situation, the entire Peach Blossom Cove would be affected. Digression, Happy New Year to everyone. Continued at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1896. How was it? Rong Xiu asked the person in his arms in a low voice. Chu Luiyue retracted her gaze. The two looked into each other's eyes. She nodded slightly. Everything went well. There was no need for any superfluous words. Their minds were connected, so he naturally knew what she was planning to do. That's good. Rong Xiu's thin lips curved into a smile. Although she wasn't injured, she must have used up a lot of energy after going through several rounds of bombardment. It wouldn't be easy if she didn't get anything out of it after working so hard. Fortunately, she always knew what she was doing. It was the same this time. Do you want to continue? Rong Xiu asked. He looked down at the black shield in her hand. A small part of the rust on it had already peeled off. Faint light could be seen lingering on it. The secret text engraved on it was gradually revealing its original appearance. Chu Luiyue nodded, then frowned slightly. But there's nothing here. We have to find another place. It was a rare opportunity. Of course, she had to continue. However, she had already tested all the places here. There was nothing she needed at the bottom of the remaining mountains. Therefore, she had to continue fighting this battle, but she had to find another place. Rong Xiu nodded with a calm expression. He was not surprised at all. Then let's change. Peach Blossom Dock was vast. This place was just a corner of it. When Chu Luiyue said that she wanted to search the entire Peach Blossom Dock, he had already expected such a situation. Chu Luiyue nodded and looked at the black shield in her hand again. As the rust on it peeled off, the weight of this thing was increasing. Chu Luiyue was already having a hard time holding it with one hand. She started to circulate the force in her body to reduce the weight. However, this action consumed an enormous amount of his strength. Fortunately, the force in her dantian was abundant. It wasn't a problem for her to deal with this for the time being. She just didn't know what would happen in the end. Chu Luiyue quickly put these thoughts away. She walked out of Rong Xiu's arms. Let's split up. Rong Xiu knew that she had other plans, so he didn't ask and just squeezed her hand. Be careful, I'll stay with you. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed, and she held his hand. His dry and warm palm emitted a comforting warmth that made her feel at ease. She didn't say anything. She just took a deep look at Rong Xiu, her eyes bright. With Rong Xiu around, she could always feel at ease. The two of them looked at each other for a moment. After that, Chu Luiyue turned around, tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and dashed forward. Dumpling followed closely behind. The figures of man and beast quickly disappeared into the distance. Rong Xiu, on the other hand, chose another direction and kept a distance from them, following them at a leisurely pace. Everyone was stunned. What are these two doing? Since Rong Xiu went to bring them out, why did he let Chu Luiyue leave alone? Isn't he worried at all with the turbulence in all directions? The people of Black Sword sect and Nan family were stunned. They couldn't figure out what Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue's motive for doing this. The 13 Yu guards were shocked at first, but they quickly chose to accept it. Judging from the situation, it's their master who wants to do this. Then there's nothing to worry about. Sun Yi moved. Follow them. Yes. As soon as he gave the order, Sanson and the others immediately responded, and then chased after him. They didn't care what their master wanted to do. They only knew that no matter what, they had to follow their master. Everything happened too quickly. By the time the rest of the people reacted, a few people, including the 13 Yu guards, had already left with Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu. Seeing their figures getting further and further away, Mo Yun and the others finally regained their senses. Vice Sect Master, they're running away. Someone said anxiously. Mo Yun's face seemed to be covered with a thick layer of ice, stiff and cold. His scarlet eyes were filled with killing intent that was about to overflow. Of course, he could see that. But the key was, where were they planning to go? No, perhaps he should ask what Chu Luiyue wanted to do. The two of them seemed to have said something, but he was still some distance away from them and couldn't hear it. But judging from their reactions afterward, it wasn't hard to guess that it was Chu Luiyue's idea to leave on their own. She hasn't had enough trouble here, and now she wants to run further away. Activate the second level of the blood sacrifice formation. Mo Yun gave the order without any hesitation. Anyway, he had to kill this person today. When the people of Black Sword sect heard this, they all looked hesitant. Mo Lin hesitated for a moment, but still spoke. Vice Sect Master, the blood sacrifice formation is very powerful, and it consumes a lot of energy. If we activate the second level, it will definitely cause more chaos. At that time, it will be even more difficult to capture them. Mo Yun looked at him with a cold smile. Mo Lin, you've become so bold now that you don't even listen to my orders? Mo Lin's face paled, and he hurriedly explained. Vice Sect Master, this subordinate definitely didn't mean that. This subordinate just felt that this blood sacrifice formation doesn't seem to have much effect on Shengguanyu. The dozens of people from Black Sword sect who followed them here had already made their move. Tianlei, which was summoned here, couldn't be said to not be terrifying. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to destroy this mountain range in such a short period of time. But what about Chu Luiyue? She was completely unharmed. She clearly had an extremely powerful trump card that allowed her to deal with such a terrifying attack easily. If they wanted to activate the second level of the blood sacrifice formation, they would need an extremely large amount of energy to support it. If that was the case, they might not be able to do anything to Chu Luiyue, but these people from Black Sword sect would most likely be in trouble. Others might not know, but Mo Lin, who was from Black Sword sect, knew all of this. The reason why the blood sacrifice formation was so powerful and could erupt with so much power was because once this formation was activated, it would crazily steal and devour the essence and blood of the people who activated it. If it was light, they would be injured, and their future and lifespan would be damaged. If it was heavy, they would die. The cold smile on Mo Yun's face gradually faded. In its place was an undisguised anger and killing intent. Then, do you have a better idea? He asked in an extremely cold voice. Sensing that something was wrong with his aura, Mo Lin's blood seemed to have stopped flowing. No, this subordinate is useless, Qi. Before he could finish his sentence, Mo Yun had already raised his hand. A black and red origin power surged out from his palm. It transformed into a long whip and coiled around Mo Lin's neck. Then, with a flick of his wrist, Mo Lin's body flew uncontrollably onto the huge blood sacrifice formation. In almost an instant, that figure was swallowed by the surging blood qi. Digression, Kana, slowly updating, at around 6:30 p.m., mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1897. Molan only let out a short and hurried scream before he quickly fell silent. Soon, when the blood faded, there was only a skeleton left in the middle of the blood sacrifice array. There were only a few pieces of scarlet flesh hanging on the bones. It was extremely bloody. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Some of them could not help but turn around and vomit. Actually, to the people of Ink Sword sect, they had seen all kinds of bloody and cruel scenes. However, the scene in front of them still had a huge impact on them. Especially when the person who died was Mo Lin. He was Mo Yun's confidant. Previously, when Lan Qingfeng was in trouble, Mo Lin did not take his life. Mo Yun even gave him a chance to make up for his mistake by meritorious deeds. However, now, Mo Yun had directly taken action and used such a terrifying and cruel method to end Mo Lin's life. What confidant? What importance? Anyone who dared to disobey Mo Yun's orders would end up like this. Mo Yun was such a person. Who else wants to object? Mo Yun looked around and asked coldly. No one spoke. Even those who had a strong reaction and were retching were so scared that their faces turned pale. They quickly stopped. Dead silence. It was not the first time they knew that Mo Yun was ruthless. However, today, Mo Yun's actions had refreshed their understanding of him. Mo Lin's skeleton was being crushed by the power of the blood sacrifice array. That voice made one's heart turn cold. At this time, who would dare to stand out and say no? Mo Yun nodded with satisfaction. This was the effect he wanted. It was not easy to cultivate a subordinate who was convenient to use, but it was not a pity to lose him. At most, he could choose another one in the future. After all, Ink Sword sect did not lack people the most. Mo Yun crossed his hands in front of him. Blood sacrifice array second level, open. The dark clouds in the sky were gathering more and more. The thick, nauseating smell of blood permeated the air. Chu Luiyue looked back and frowned slightly. The blood sacrifice array seemed to have changed. Mo Yun had made up his mind to fight to the death and kill her. In fact, she was not afraid of Tianlei, which they had summoned. However, she still felt a little uneasy in her heart. This was because the space around her had been collapsing along the way. Between heaven and earth, violent energy collided in all directions, tearing apart countless spatial cracks. Although she had stayed in the Peach Blossom Cove before, she had never caused such a huge commotion. Looks like I have to end this as soon as possible, Chu Luiyue thought to himself. As long as he could find the remaining ones as soon as possible and completely peel off the rust on the black shield, this matter would come to an end. At that time, the collapsed void of the Peach Blossom dock should be able to repair itself. A slight fluctuation suddenly came from the distant horizon. Chu Luiyue's heart stirred as he looked into the distant sky. The peach blossom doc's enchantment fell from the sky at the point where the heavens and earth connected. That was where the energy fluctuation had come from. Chu Liuyue's heart sank slightly. Even the barrier was affected? There was no time to lose. He had to end the battle quickly. As this thought flashed through his mind, Chu Liyue once again circulated the origin power in his body. He rushed forward at an even faster speed. The commotion here was too big. Very quickly, many people in the Peach Blossom Dock City were alerted. What's going on over there? You still don't know? That's Ink Sword sect chasing after the people of the U residence. U residence? Third boss? How is this possible? Isn't the relationship between Third Boss and Ink Sword sect very good? Why would Ink Sword sect suddenly attack the people of the U residence? How can it be fake? I saw them chasing out of the city with my own eyes. Other than Ink Sword sect, there was another group of people who seemed to be involved in the chase as well. The group that came seemed to be the Nan family of the Divine Ruins world. The leaders seemed to be the young master of the Nan family. However, their target was not Third Boss. Do you still remember that some people came to the U residence a while ago? This time, Ink Sword sect and Nan family were going to deal with them. Didn't they say that they were Third Boss's friends? What friends? Among those people, there was the holy son of the Yuntian Tower, Rong Xiu, and his new princess consort, Sheng Guanyu. The Ink Sword sect and Nan family joined forces to chase after the two of them. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard this. Rong Xiu. Sheng Guanyu. These two names were like thunder in the ears of the people of the Divine Ruins world recently. Even the Peach Blossom Dock, which was located at the border of the Divine Ruins world, had heard of them. It couldn't be helped. What happened at the wedding ceremony of the two people was too shocking. Because of this, the people were even more confused. It's actually the two of them. Didn't they just get married at the Yuntian Tower not long ago? Why would they suddenly come to the Peach Blossom Dock? I heard that Third Boss is from Shengguanyu. That's not the point. The point is, aren't Rong Xiu and Shengguanyu close to the two primordial divine beast clans? What exactly did they do to make the people of the Black Sword sect and the Nan family hate them so much, to the point that they would rather offend such existences than kill the two of them? This was what everyone couldn't figure out. Look! They are still fighting. Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the crowd. Everyone's expression changed when they looked over. The sky in the distance was already covered by layers of dark clouds. Several Tianlei surged in the sky, and its aura was terrifying. The terrifying collision caused the endless void to collapse. However, at this moment, a petite figure in a red dress was flying across the sky at high speed. Wherever it passed, silver and red starlight intertwined like a surging river. That's a godly realm? Someone couldn't help but mumble in shock. Didn't they say that Shengguanyu is only a high god? How can she use such a terrifying godly realm? They were still quite a distance away from that place, but they could still faintly feel that astonishing aura and pressure. This is bad. The barrier of Peach Blossom Dock is about to collapse. Someone exclaimed in shock. Is she going to destroy Peach Blossom Dock? Digression, I'm tired. I want to rest. That's all for today. I'll make it up to you later. Mwah. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1898. Look. It's not because of her, it's because of the Ink Sword sect. Another cry of surprise came from the crowd. Many people flew up one after another and looked in that direction. At this time, half of the sky was covered by thick black clouds, and the sky was dark. Furthermore, the clouds were still rapidly spreading towards the city from that side. Tianlei was moving crazily in the clouds. A huge blood-red totem hung in the air. That's the Ink Sword sect's totem. Some sharp-eyed people recognized the appearance of the totem and murmured in shock. This Tianlei, it's obviously because of them. It's them. A young man in the crowd suddenly said with certainty. This is the Ink Sword sect's usual method. Their monthly assessment was actually the same method they used to pass the test. As long as a few people work together and set up a similar formation, they can quickly attract Tianlei. They used these heavenly lightning to screen out the cultivators who were taking part in the assessment. Only those who were talented enough and strong enough would be able to survive this round. As for the rest, they were the ones who took the lives of the rest. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The street was dead silent for a moment, and then a commotion broke out. Is this real? Those people are all dead? It can't be, right? Only 10 or 20% of the Black Sword sect's monthly assessment are able to pass. If the remaining ones all die, then, wouldn't the number of people they've killed over the past 1 or 2 years be countless? This brother, you should be careful with your words. If the Ink Sword sect's people hear it, the man snorted. So what if they hear it? I saw it with my own eyes, it's definitely not fake. Besides, it's been so long, haven't any of you suspected that those who failed to enter the Ink Sword sect all left the Peach Blossom Cove and never appeared again? The crowd fell silent. Actually, it wasn't that no one had suspected this, but the Ink Sword sect was too powerful in the Peach Blossom Cove. Even if there were people who had doubts, not many would dare to verify it. Now that someone suddenly said this, it naturally caused many people's hearts to waver. If you have the time to doubt the truth, why don't you think about what to do next? The Black Sword sect was clearly determined to kill Rongxiu and Sheng Guanyu. They were willing to pay any price to do so. Even Mo Yun personally took action. If the Peach Blossom dock really collapses, at that time, it will be difficult for everyone to escape death. The man's voice was deep and powerful, causing many people's hearts to tighten. They were not stupid and knew that this was definitely not an exaggeration. In an instant, many people felt discontent and resentment towards the Black Sword sect. It doesn't matter if you want to kill someone or if you want to die. But you can't let so many people from Peach Blossom Cove die with you, right? By creating such a huge commotion, wasn't it obvious that they wanted everyone in the city to suffer as well? If the Peach Blossom dock was destroyed, none of the people here would be able to escape. Then what should we do now? Someone asked hurriedly. The man pondered for a moment. According to what I know, their formation is very strange. The more people that participate, the stronger it becomes. Just now, I saw that Mo Yun had already sent out a signal to gather the people from the Black Sword sect. I think he wants them to go and help. In my opinion, why don't we go and stop the people from the Black Sword sect first? If fewer people go, the formation won't have more power to support it. Naturally, it won't work. Many people looked at each other when they heard this. Is this feasible? That's the Black Sword sect we're talking about. With so few people, can we be a match for them? That's right. Moreover, if Mo Yun decides to punish us. The man raised his eyebrows. Everyone, if we don't stop the Black Sword sect today, we don't even know if we can survive until tomorrow. Moreover, the Black Sword sect has been tyrannical in the Peach Blossom dock for a long time. It's time for them to learn a lesson. Isn't that right? In any case, today, Duan Xingchuan, will fight the Black Sword sect to the end. If you want to, then follow me. If you don't dare, I won't force you. Anyway, life and death are predestined. Everyone, please do as you wish. After he finished speaking, he actually pushed off the ground with the tip of his foot and headed straight in the direction of the Ink Sword sect. Brother Duan. We'll go with you. Me too. We'll go too. The Black Sword sect killed a few of my brothers. We've wanted to take revenge for this for a long time. At this critical moment, many people gritted their teeth and made the decision to follow Duan Xingchuan. Actually, Duan Xingchuan was right. Even if it was for themselves, they had to take action this time. The Black Sword sect had already disregarded the safety of the entire Peach Blossom dock. Why should they show mercy? More and more people headed towards the Black Sword sect. Soon, they met the people who were coming out of the Black Sword sect and were planning to head towards Mo Yun. Seeing this, the people were even more certain of their guesses. The Black Sword sect was truly willing to gamble with the strength of their entire sect. Stop them! Duan Qingchuan shouted and took the lead to charge forward. When the people beside him heard this, they immediately made their moves. Before the people of the Black Sword sect could react to what was happening, a fierce battle had already broken out. Both sides quickly clashed. The Black Sword sect had already sent out most of their top forces. In addition, due to the incident with Lan Qingfeng, they had already lost many people. Hence, they did not have the upper hand in the battle with Duan Qingchuan and the others. The news spread quickly. Many people in the Peach Blossom dock rushed over one after another. It was obvious that they wanted to get rid of the people of the Black Sword sect. Seeing that more and more people were coming, the Black Sword sect that was initially dismissive finally panicked. What's going on? Why are there so many people rushing over in such a short time? In a remote courtyard in the west of the city, a figure hurriedly walked in. In the courtyard, a person was standing with his hands behind his back. My lord, Qingchuan and the others have already led their men to the Black Sword sect. We've also mobilized all the troops in the city to head there together. The Black Sword sect is strong on the outside but weak on the inside. We should be able to take them down soon. That person turned around. He had a handsome face and a cold gaze. It was Yan Qing. Digression, today's update time is not fixed. Let's read it together at 6 p.m. The epidemic is serious. We've already sealed off the districts and villages here. Everyone should stay at home. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1899. He nodded slightly. You must kill all the people from Ink Sword sect. Leave no one alive. His voice was cold and indifferent as usual. Yes. That person replied. We have been hiding here for a long time, waiting for this day. We will not disappoint you. Yan Qing's brows twitched. Back then, it was His Highness who personally appointed you, so he naturally trusts you. The man chuckled. I thought we would have to wait a little longer, but His Highness and the princess consort arrived so quickly. It must be third boss's doing. If he hadn't started a business here and wrote to Tsun Yi and the others, they would have to wait even longer. Yan Qing pondered for a moment. Do the people of Yumanor know about you? I don't think so. We spend most of our time scattered around Peach Blossom Cove. Even when we attacked Ink Sword sect this time, we split up and acted separately. If even Ink Sword sect didn't notice, it's impossible for Yumanor to know. That person chuckled. Don't worry. Before we came here, His Highness told us that if the princess consort's people came, we didn't have to show ourselves. Later on, third boss came and quickly started the business. We didn't join in the fun. If they didn't have to deal with Ink Sword sect this time, they wouldn't even meet Yan Qing. Originally, we thought that since third boss came here alone, he would be isolated and helpless, so we planned to help him secretly. But we didn't expect third boss to be so capable that he didn't need us at all. Moreover, he built Yumanor in such a short time. He gave a thumbs up. As expected of the princess consort's people. Very impressive. Hearing this, Yan Qing narrowed his eyes. A seductive and wanton figure suddenly flashed through his mind. He raised his brows slightly. The 13th Yumanor is indeed extraordinary. That person didn't notice the subtle change in his expression and continued to ask. Sir, we have more or less taken control of Ink Sword sect. Do you want to send people to His Highness and the princess consort's side? No need. Before he could finish speaking, Yan Qing spoke up and rejected his suggestion. Tsun Yi and the others have already gone over. Moreover, His Highness and Princess Consort did this intentionally, so there's no need to worry. That person raised his head hesitantly. But... Sir, look at the commotion over there. It's almost spreading to the city. Did he really not need their help? Yan Qing lifted his gaze slightly and looked towards the horizon. Under the dark sky, Tianlei surged and the wind howled. Countless voids were collapsing. Large expanses of blackness spread out like a giant beast, about to devour everything. The enchantment of the Peach Blossom Cove was trembling violently, as if it would collapse at any moment. A bright and resplendent silver-red god domain surged like a clear river. A woman, with her shoulders and back straight, hovered in midair. With a shield in her left hand and a sword in her right, she looked like a god of war. Yan Qing was slightly shocked and murmured in a low voice, "We still don't know who exactly needs reinforcements." Rumble. A bright bolt of heavenly lightning struck down with a loud crash. Chu Luiyue looked up with a cold gaze. She had already shifted her position and was extremely far away from Lan Qingfeng. However, Ma Jian's sect was chasing after her relentlessly. They had already controlled the blood sacrifice array and lured Tianlei here. The wind howled in her ears. Voids were collapsing in all directions. In the distance, the enchantment of the Peach Blossom Cove was on the verge of collapsing. Chu Luiyue felt as if there were countless forces around her that were crazily pulling at her. It was as if they wanted to tear her apart. With a thought, a golden armor quickly covered her body. "Have you had enough fun?" Her gaze was cold as she scolded in a deep voice. Even if Mo Yun and the others were not annoyed, she had already lost her patience. Hearing her voice, Mo Yun was stunned at first. Then, his face turned cold as he sneered. "Why? Don't you want to escape? Even if you want to escape, you will need to expend a lot of energy and energy." Chu Luiyue clearly wanted to play along with him until the end. However, in the blink of an eye, she stopped and asked this question. It was likely that she could not take it anymore. There was a distance between the two of them. However, Chu Luiyue could still hear the arrogance in Mo Yun's voice. She could not help but sneer in her heart. "That's right. I don't want to waste any more time with you." If the Peach Blossom Cove collapsed, even she did not dare to predict the situation. Therefore, she could not afford to waste any more time with these people. Mo Yun raised his voice. "It's too late. Shengguan Yu. Rong Xiu. If you had knelt down and admitted defeat at the beginning, we might have left your bodies intact. However, that's impossible now. Ma Jian's sect had paid a huge price to hunt down these two people. Although Mo Yun did not care about the lives of these people, he cared about Ma Jian's sect's reputation. He had to avenge the slaps from these two people." Chu Luiyue's lips suddenly curled up into a smile. Her smile was extremely cold and did not reach her eyes. "Very good. I think so too." As she spoke, she slowly tightened her grip on Scarlet Heaven's sword. Rong Xiu, who had been following not far away, saw her expression and suddenly had a thought. 13 asked uneasily. "Big brother, why do I feel that Master is planning to do something?" Yuzhou nodded and whispered. "I think so too." They had followed Chu Luiyue for many years and knew her temperament very well. Master rarely revealed such an expression. Xin Yi suddenly said. "Everyone, get ready. Pay attention to your safety. If necessary, retreat at any time." The flesh on 13's cheeks trembled slightly. "Big brother, aren't you too serious? Just listening to it was really scary, okay?" Xin Yi glanced at him indifferently. "I almost forgot. You can stay here safely. After all, you still have that small space. If Master needs anything, you must not be a burden. Do you understand?" This was not a question, but an order. 13's face immediately fell. He did not forget. He had always remembered it. "Oh." 13 struggled to ask. "Big brother, do you mean, you really want Master to do it himself?" I think those people from Black Sword sect are not easy to deal with. Shifang sighed and patted him on the shoulder. Child, you are still young after all. In a while, you will know that the one who is really difficult to deal with is not Black Sword sect, but our master. When master is about to flip out, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Just retreat. Retreat early to ensure your safety. 13 nodded as if he understood. If even Brother 10 said so, then, perhaps, he could be at ease? At this moment, Tianlei had already struck down heavily. Chu Luyue narrowed her eyes, then tapped her toes and went straight for Tianlei. At the same time, a sword aura slashed down horizontally. Scarlet Heaven Sword. A bright rainbow light cut through all obstacles. Luo Yan and the others, who were watching from afar, were slightly shocked when they saw this scene. She actually wants to take the risk? Even Her Eminence has to be careful when dealing with the power of Tianlei. Does she want to die? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1900. The second layer of the blood sacrifice formation had been activated. Other than expanding the range of its attack, the Tianlei it summoned had also become stronger. This was also why they had initially wanted to join the fight, but in the end, they chose to stay where they were and observe. Who knew if Chu Luyue and the rest would be killed by this Tianlei? However, Chu Luyue's actions had exceeded their expectations. Luo Yan placed his hands behind his back and did not speak. He had personally witnessed the combat strength Chu Luyue had displayed in the god-slaying mound. He knew very well that this woman would never do something she was not confident in. If she dared to do this, it meant that she was confident. However, after all, the Black Sword sect was determined to kill her this time. They had already used all their strength and held nothing back. Could she really handle it? Besides, there was also Rong Xiu. Luo Yan's gaze turned slightly and looked at the tall white figure beside Chu Luyue. Rong Xiu did not move. It seemed that he was going to let her do whatever she wanted. Luo Yan felt inexplicably uneasy. Even at a time like this, these people were still so calm. Could it be that they still had some trump cards that they had not revealed? Let's watch first, Luo Yan ordered. The elders nodded when they heard this. Perhaps this battle would end very soon. Boom! An earth-shattering sound suddenly rang out. The terrifying sword Qi and Tianlei's power fiercely collided. Streaks of silver-white energy spread out in all directions. Chu Liyue's figure had long been swallowed by the dazzling light. Mo Yun sneered and spat out a mouthful of blood. You overestimate yourself. He knew that Chu Liyue might have some ability, but the second layer of the blood sacrifice formation had been activated, and its power was shocking. Even if she had great ability, she would not be able to escape death this time. After killing Chu Luyue, the next one would be Rong Xiu. If he could kill both of them here, then from now on, not only would he be able to make up for his mistakes in front of the sect master, he would also be rewarded handsomely. This thought made Mo Yun faintly excited in his heart. He did not control Lan Qingfeng's matter well. The entire Peach Blossom dock was in an uproar. This was almost a capital offense. Only Rong Xiu and Chu Luyue could save him from this hopeless situation. Therefore, he decided to bet the entire Ink Sword sect. No matter how many casualties there were, as long as he could achieve the result he wanted, nothing else mattered. However, just as Mo Yun was waiting for Chu Luyue to die, a figure suddenly flew out from the lightning that filled the sky. Her figure was tall and slender. It was Chu Luyue. A sword aura shot up into the sky and forcefully split the ball of flickering white light in half. How is this possible? Mo Yun suddenly opened his eyes wide, his eyes filled with horror. The smugness that had just crept up from the corners of his eyes completely froze. He looked extremely embarrassed. However, he couldn't care less right now. There was only one thought left in his mind. Chu Luyue actually split the Tianlei in half. Isn't she a high deity? How can she have such powerful combat power? However, before he could figure it out, he saw the figure again moving against the lightning. She went straight for the rolling dark clouds that almost overturned half the sky. Countless people gasped in shock. There were still several bolts of heavenly lightning accumulated in the clouds. Wasn't she courting death by going there? In the eyes of ordinary people, Chu Luiyue was simply tired of living by doing this. Who could survive if they rushed into the sea of lightning? However, Mo Yun looked at the figure from afar. Not only did he not heave a sigh of relief, but he also became more nervous. Ever since they decided to kill the two of them, Chu Luiyue's series of actions had far exceeded their expectations. It was shocking. However, every time they thought that she was going to die, she always managed to survive. This time, would she also? As Mo Yun was thinking, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Then, he looked over and saw a bolt of heavenly lightning falling from the sky. Boom! A huge sound spread far and wide, almost deafening. Heavenly lightning striking down was originally not something shocking. But the key point was that this bolt of heavenly lightning was actually flying towards Mo Yun and the rest. When he first saw it, Mo Yun was still in disbelief. It was only when the Tianlei rapidly approached and the terrifying pressure crushed the void inch by inch that the people of Majian sect finally realized the danger. I don't know what method Chu Luiyue used, but she actually made the lightning turn around and attack us. Mo Yun's heart was filled with shock and disbelief, and it quickly turned into anger and shock. It was like seeing a ghost. They were the ones who summoned the Tianlei. Why did it attack them in the end? What did Chu Luiyue do? Quick! Activate the blood sacrifice array's defense. Mo Yun hurriedly urged. The Tianlei's strength was shocking. If he was at his peak, it would not be a problem. However, the blood sacrifice array consumed a lot of force and mental energy. After the series of torment earlier, he could no longer unleash his full strength. The only way was to activate the blood sacrifice array. However, just as he finished speaking, a painful groan was heard. This sound was short and hurried. It only appeared for a moment and disappeared very quickly. Mo Yun's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately turned back to look. Beside the blood sacrifice array, one of the Majian sect guards spat out a mouthful of blood due to exhaustion and collapsed. However, before he hit the ground, a surge of energy suddenly surged out of the blood sacrifice array and swallowed him. That person felt that something was wrong and immediately tried to break free and escape. However, all the energy in his body was already exhausted. He did not even have the strength to lift his arms. How could he escape from the blood sacrifice array? In the blink of an eye, his figure completely disappeared. Everyone fell silent. Their eyes were filled with panic. They were very clear that this person's outcome would be exactly the same as Mo Lin's. At this moment, a slight cracking sound could be heard from the blood sacrifice array. Mo Yun immediately focused his eyes and looked over, only to see that a crack had suddenly appeared on the huge blood sacrifice array. His heart sank. The blood sacrifice array's energy was not enough. To maintain the blood sacrifice array's operation, it required an endless supply of energy. The people present had basically exhausted all of their origin power after this period of torment. They were just barely holding on at the moment. Now that one person had suddenly died, the entire blood sacrifice array would be affected. Why aren't they here yet? Mo Yun could not help but scold angrily. Before he came, he had already sent out the summons. Logically speaking, the people in charge of the Majian sect's reinforcements should have arrived by now. However, there was not a single person. Mo Yun looked in the direction of the city. It was empty, and there was no movement. Suddenly, a white light flashed in his mind. His pupils shrank. Something had happened to the Majian sect. Digression, not in the right state, staring at the computer for a few hours without writing. The 4th chapter is estimated to be at 7:00, and the 5th chapter might be in arrears. Sorry everyone, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1901. Black Sword Sect had always been strict with their rules. Once they received an order, they would not disobey it for no reason. Now that so much time had passed, not a single person had arrived. It was certain that something had happened in the city. Mo Yun's chest seemed to be burning fiercely. He clenched his fists tightly, almost grinding his teeth to pieces. Who would attack Black Sword Sect at this time? It was obvious who it was. He suddenly turned around and looked at Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue. As if sensing his gaze, Rong Xiu, who had been looking at Chu Luiyue, suddenly looked over. The two of them looked at each other from a distance. With just one look, Mo Yun saw the undisguised sarcasm and indifference in Rong Xiu's deep eyes. Mo Yun's heart seemed to have been hit by something. It was them. In that moment, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Black Sword Sect had many people and their strength was not weak. Even if a portion of them had died, the remaining people's combined battle power was still considerable. No matter what, it should not be that no one came. This could only prove, the entire Black Sword Sect was probably in trouble now. But, how did Rong Xiu do it? In the entire Peach Blossom Dock, Black Sword Sect dominated. Even the Yu family could not be compared to them. There was no reason for Black Sword Sect to lose. Mo Yun could not figure it out. He had always thought that Black Sword Sect had half of the Peach Blossom Dock under their control. But he did not expect such a thing to happen at such a crucial time. If no one came to help, then this blood sacrifice array would not be able to last much longer. Ah! Just as Mo Yun was thinking about this, another guard was drawn into the blood sacrifice array because he had overdrawn his strength and could not hold on any longer. In the blink of an eye, he was reduced to a pile of bones. The power of the blood sacrifice array started to become disordered. Mo Yun started to worry. If this goes on, we won't be able to survive even before Chu Luiyue is killed. At this moment, he hated Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue to the core. These two people were truly sinister and cunning to the extreme. Now that he thought about it, he realized that something was amiss. Even Chu Luiyue's escape out of the city from the start was part of her plan. However, it was clearly too late to think about this now. Rumble. Another Tianlei came crashing down, heading straight for the Black Sword Sect disciples. Is that Chu Luiyue really a freak? When the elders of the Nan family saw this, their expressions became shocked and solemn. She thought that Chu Luiyue was dead for sure, but now, not only was she fine, she even killed her opponent. He had never seen anyone who could control Tianlei with such ease. Not even gods like them could do that. Luo Yan frowned. He had expected that Chu Luiyue would not admit defeat so easily, but the scene before him still surprised him. In this battle with the Black Sword Sect, it was hard to say who would win and who would lose. Right at this moment, a huge roar suddenly came from the horizon. Between heaven and earth, endless energy suddenly surged as if it was boiling. Not good. The barrier of the Peach Blossom Cove has collapsed. One of the elders exclaimed in surprise. In the distance, the enchantment that was glowing faintly in the sky suddenly shattered. The space started to compress. The energy of heaven and earth started to riot. Luo Yan made a prompt decision: retreat. There were plenty of chances to kill Chu Luiyue, but if she died here today, everything would be gone. Almost at the same time, a large patch of black suddenly appeared in the sky. It was a black hole that was formed when space collapsed. The ground shook violently. The undulating mountain range started to collapse. Countless cracks spread across the ground, and ravines appeared on the ground. For a moment, the sky collapsed and the earth caved in, as if it was the end of the world. Digression: I owe you, I'll make up for it later. I'll go straighten out my thoughts and plan. Love you mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1902. Luo Yan and the rest had intended to take advantage of the chaos to escape, but they were quickly pushed back by the raging energy. Looking at the sky that was collapsing inch by inch, listening to the constant cracking sounds coming from the ground, Luo Yan felt as if his body was being torn apart by countless forces. He hurriedly activated his force and set up a barrier around himself. However, that terrifying energy attack still sent chills down their spines. They even had to use all the energy in their bodies to barely stay where they were and not be swept away by the various forces. Luo Yan clenched his fists, his heart thumping so hard that it almost jumped out of his chest. Peach Blossom Cove's barrier had completely collapsed, and they had no way of getting out. Ink Sword Sect and Chu Luiyue wanted everyone to die with them. At the same time, the people in the city also sensed that something was wrong, and they all looked up. Not good. Peach Blossom Cove's barrier has been destroyed. With that, countless people began to run out of Peach Blossom Cove in a panic. However, the energy between heaven and earth had completely gone out of control. Those who were slightly stronger could barely hold on, but those who were not were already showing all sorts of reactions. Their faces were pale, and their breathing was ragged. Some could not bear the pressure of the rapidly collapsing space, and kept spitting out blood. In short, the situation was terrible. Ink Sword Sect was littered with corpses. Previously, the people in the city had all gathered and rushed over, surrounding Ink Sword Sect. Both sides had erupted into an intense battle. There were countless casualties. The air was filled with a thick, suffocating smell of blood. Ink Sword Sect wants all of our lives. Duan Xingchuan was the first to react, and he shouted. Everyone else reacted. That's right. If Ink Sword Sect had not insisted on chasing after Rong Xiao and Chu Luiyue, if they had not used that terrifying and strange Xian formation, if they had not ignored everything and triggered Tianlei, how could Peach Blossom Cove's barrier have collapsed? Everyone would not have fallen into such a dangerous situation. Intense anger and hatred filled everyone's hearts. The people of Ink Sword Sect, who were already at the end of their rope, sensed the tense and cold atmosphere, and they could not help but feel afraid. At this time, they also understood that Imo Yun and the rest had no intention of coming back to help them. He didn't even care about their lives. The barrier has collapsed. We are completely trapped here. Those who reacted first and tried to escape the Peach Blossom Cove were all stopped by the intertwining spatial turbulence. There were even some who were mercilessly swallowed by the collapsing void and never made it out again. Hearing those people's cries of pain before they died, the people behind them couldn't help but feel scared. It's over. Peach Blossom Dock is completely finished. We're all going to die here today. Someone muttered with a pale face, his eyes filled with despair. Even if I die today, I'll drag the Black Sword Sect down with me. In the deathly silent crowd, someone suddenly yelled out in a stern voice. These words were like a falling star, instantly igniting a raging inferno. The battle between both sides became even more intense. The people of the Black Sword Sect were already at a disadvantage. Now that the crowd was enraged, they suffered a crushing defeat. Not only the Black Sword Sect, but the entire Peach Blossom Cove had fallen into chaos. On the streets, countless people were running back and forth in panic. All kinds of trampling, collisions, and killing occurred continuously. When they realized that the Peach Blossom Cove was in a life-and-death crisis, no one could remain calm. At first, there were still many people who tried to escape from the collapsing barrier. But after the first batch died, the people behind didn't dare to act rashly. They were running to live, not to die. More people had already chosen to give up in despair. In the courtyard of the Black Sword Sect, Duan Xingchuan raised his saber and swung it down. At his feet, the corpses of the Black Sword Sect people were strewn all over the ground. The sounds of killing continued in the surroundings. It was almost like hell on earth. Brother Duan, the barrier has collapsed. Shouldn't we think of a way to retreat? Someone asked anxiously. Many people looked over when they heard that. After this incident, many people had already subconsciously regarded Duan Xingchuan as their backbone. So now that something had happened, they also subconsciously asked for Duan Xingchuan's opinion. Duan Xingchuan swung his saber and stabbed a fleeing black sword sect person to death. Warm blood splattered on his face. He raised his arm and wiped the blood away with his sleeve. Retreat? How? To where? His voice was very calm. Those who had stayed in the Peach Blossom Cove long enough would know how terrible the situation was. Although he had been on the Black Sword sect side, he wasn't completely ignorant of the situation outside. Those who had tried to escape had all failed. Among them, there was no lack of powerful people. All of this proved that it was impossible for them to leave this place safely. Then we're just going to wait for death here? Yeah. We can't be completely helpless, right? There are so many people in the Peach Blossom Cove. Why don't we join forces? Maybe we'll have a chance. Seeing that Duan Xingchuan's attitude wasn't optimistic, many people panicked. For a moment, everyone was discussing. Although some of them were already prepared to die, most of them still hoped to survive safely. Duan Xingchuan suddenly raised his head and looked at the horizon. If someone can repair the barrier of the Peach Blossom Cove, maybe we'll have a chance to survive. Everyone fell into a dead silence. How could they not have thought of this? But the key was, this was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The barrier of the Peach Blossom Cove wasn't man-made. It existed naturally. For thousands of years, the Peach Blossom Cove had never been occupied by anyone because of the existence of this barrier. Now that the barrier had collapsed, the void had collapsed, and the entire Peach Blossom Cove was in chaos. Who could repair the barrier? Everyone was just a mayfly at this moment. They couldn't even struggle. Who could save them? The sky was still collapsing, and the ground was shaking violently. The space was shrinking and squeezing inwards. Everyone who was in the middle of it could already feel the suffocating pressure. More and more people couldn't withstand the pressure and gradually collapsed. Most of the people from the Black Sword sect had been killed. But what was the use of that? If the Peach Blossom Cove was destroyed, all of them would die here. Duan Xingchuan held the long saber in his hand tightly. His lips were pursed as he looked at the distant sky, as if he was waiting for something. Boom! A loud sound was suddenly heard. Then, a faint blue flame shot up into the sky. It was a cluster of flames that suddenly surged out from under the crumbling mountain range. Mo Yun and the rest had seen this scene too many times before. So, they didn't take it to heart. However, before they could react, the ravines on the ground of the mountain range exploded like a string of cannons. Boom! Boom! Demonic and crazy flames covered the sky and covered the earth. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1903. Everyone was stunned. This flame. Isn't it too much? On the mountain, in the forest, and in the valley. Even in every corner of the city, there were flames rushing out rapidly. The entire Peach Blossom Dock was engulfed in a sea of fire. The dark and gloomy sky was now illuminated by endless flames. The blue flames leaped and roasted the hearts of countless people. How could this be? How could this be? There is such a hidden danger under the Peach Blossom Dock. What are those flames? Countless questions lingered in the minds of the people, causing them to panic. The aura of this flame was tyrannical and extremely powerful. The Peach Blossom Dock's barrier had collapsed, and no one could enter or leave. Once the flames spread out, none of them would be able to escape. The discussion gradually died down. Someone was sobbing. Everyone in the city was in complete despair. Now, all they could do was wait for their deaths. Chi! A stream of light suddenly flew out from a cluster of flames. The stream of light drew a straight line in the sky and headed straight for Chu Luyue. Many people saw this scene. What is that? I don't know. I didn't see it clearly. It seems like this is not the first time she has done this. Something seemed to fly out from the flames on the mountains outside the city. She seems to be looking for something in the flames. I remember now. The people of Black Sword Sect were on guard against Lan Qingfeng. They seemed to be looking for something too. Everyone in Peach Blossom Dock knew what had happened during this period of time. Therefore, when someone reminded them, many people immediately connected the dots. With so many pairs of eyes watching, this conjecture could almost be completely confirmed. But, what was that thing that flew out from the flames? Countless people looked at Chu Luiyue. Of course, Chu Luiyue knew what it was. When the stream of light flew over from below, she held her breath and held the black shield in her hand tightly. Crack. A familiar cracking sound was heard. Then, a piece of rust peeled off from the shield. A corner of the secret text was gradually revealed. Buzz. The stream of light flew to Chu Luiyue. A thin blue crystal gently covered the area where the rust had peeled off. The sparkling light gradually shrouded it. The shield in her hand became heavier and heavier. However, this was just the beginning. Chi. Chi. The sound of air being torn apart came from all directions. Chu Luiyue hovered in the air and looked down. Countless flames had already ignited in the huge peach blossom dock. Pieces of thin crystals flew out of it, wrapped in a brilliant light. The black shield seemed to be summoned by some kind of power and began to tremble. Chu Luiyue's hand was already numb, and her knuckles had turned white from using too much strength. However, she still used all her strength to hold the black shield firmly in her hands. Crisp cracking sounds could be heard. Pieces after pieces of rust peeled off the shield. At the same time, a terrifyingly powerful pressure. Puff. The blood in Chu Luiyue's body flowed rapidly, and her force was almost boiling. She suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and her face instantly turned incomparably pale. The bright red blood stain at the corner of her lips made her look even more haggard. The slight trembling of her body showed that she was under tremendous pressure at this moment. However, her black eyes were cold and gloomy. She was actually exceptionally calm. His eyes were burning with a raging fighting spirit. Countless streams of light came from all directions of the peach blossom dock. Bang! The golden armor on Chu Luiyue's body suddenly shattered under the impact of the surrounding spatial turbulence. Digression, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1904. Rong Xiu's expression froze, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. He bent his long legs and was about to go forward when he saw the black shield in front of Chu Luiyue, which was already covered by a lustrous light, and he stopped in his tracks. At this moment, it was useless for anyone to go over. She could only rely on herself. Seeing this, the other members of the 13U sect also looked worried. Master. Xin Yi raised his hand and signaled for them to calm down. Big brother? This time, not only the 13U sect members, but even Sanson was a little hesitant. Master's situation didn't look too good, however, Xin Yi's expression was calm and didn't allow any disobedience. Although they were anxious, they could only stay where they were obediently. Hiss, Sanson wanted to say something, but he suddenly frowned. Third brother, what's wrong? 13 hurriedly asked. Sanson waved his hand, and his chubby face scrunched up. Nothing, nothing. It's just that small space is about to break. Chi. As soon as he said that, a stream of light flew up from the direction of Qingshui Cliff. That thin layer of blue was actually wrapped in a blazing flame and landed on the shallow spot where the rust had peeled off. Boom! Qingshui Cliff also started to collapse, as if it was being squeezed by the surrounding void turbulence. Large pieces of rock fell from the mountain. A loud sound was heard. Sanson's eyelids twitched violently, and he felt extremely pained. My baby. If that small space was destroyed, the loss would be immeasurable. As soon as he thought of this, his heart ached so much that it twitched. However, at this moment, Chu Luyue, who was suspended in mid-air, suddenly raised his hand. A silver-red divine realm flew out like a heavenly river pouring down. In the blink of an eye, it covered Qingshui Cliff. The fine light flickered quietly, and it was especially eye-catching in this chaotic situation. Sanson's eyes instantly lit up. Master had actually personally taken action to protect that small space of his. Master is too good. Woo-woo. Sanson's eyes were almost brimming with tears. First it was despair, then it was hope. This feeling of rising and falling was simply too satisfying. His little heart couldn't take it anymore, okay? Sunyi glanced at him indifferently and raised his eyebrows slightly, but he didn't say anything. So many mountains had been destroyed previously, but there was no movement on Master's side. However, just as there was movement on Qingshui Cliff, Master chose to attack without hesitation. This could only prove that Master was also very reluctant to part of that small space. However, seeing how agitated Sanson was, Sunyi decided to be kind and not expose her. Master's God's realm. Biyao stared at the divine domain that was slowly flowing like a waterfall as he muttered to himself. Fifth, brother, you feel it too? Yu Jiao nodded. I have the same feeling, when Qingshui of Qingshui. To cliff, of the cliffs Qingjin, SS. This was not the first time they had seen their master display his divine domain, but this time, it seemed like his aura and pressure were the strongest. God's domain can become stronger? 13 was at a loss. Don't exalted gods only have a chance to improve their god's realm after breaking through to venerable god? He was only a rank 7 warrior now and was still quite a distance away from exalted gods. Therefore, he had heard a lot about exalted gods from Sunyi and the others. That's true for ordinary people, but our master isn't ordinary. Shifang sighed and then looked aggrieved. It's a pity that my vegetable garden. I'm afraid it's going to be destroyed again. On the first day he came to Peach Blossom Cove, he started to plant vegetables in the backyard excitedly. He thought that everything would go smoothly this time, but who knew that such a big thing would happen again? That was great. He couldn't eat the vegetables that he had painstakingly grown again. Shifang felt very sad when he thought of what had happened in the past few days. After a rough calculation, he realized that it had been a long time since he had a proper meal. Everyone looked at him. At this time, everyone in Peach Blossom Cove was in danger and was afraid of dying here. Shifang was the only one who was still thinking about those dishes. However, they quickly retracted their gazes. Shifang had always been like this and they were already used to it. They looked at Chu Luyue in unison. They didn't know if their master could really deal with the situation in front of them alone this time. This Shangguan Yu. There's really a problem. The elders of the Nan family became even more flustered when they saw the flames that were ignited everywhere. If Peach Blossom Cove is completely destroyed, does she think she can survive alone? They thought that the people of Black Sword sect were crazy enough, but they didn't expect her to be even crazier. They wanted to drag everyone down with them. Luo Yan's face was gloomy as he suddenly took out a red scroll. The scroll was shrouded in a layer of faint light. A heavy pressure was emitted from it. When the people around him saw the scroll, they were all shocked. Flowing Cloud Flying Diagram. The Flowing Cloud Flying Diagram was a venerable divine artifact and the treasure of the Nan family. Unlike other venerable divine artifacts that were used for killing and were extremely aggressive, this treasure only had one use. No matter who the holder was, they could use it to forcefully open up space and teleport the holder to another place in an extremely short amount of time. In layman's terms, this was a teleportation formation that could be carried around. Most people might think that this thing was very ordinary and nothing special. However, only those who truly understood its power would know how powerful this thing was. During ordinary battles, this flowing cloud flying diagram might not be of use, but at critical moments, it could save one's life. Just like now. The void of Peach Blossom Cove collapsed and the barrier collapsed. The energy of heaven and earth was almost completely out of control. Luo Yan and the others had already tried to leave, but they all failed. Now, their only hope was the flowing cloud flying diagram. But wasn't this thing with young master? An elder said in confusion. Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly realized that he had said something wrong and hurriedly stopped. He looked at Luo Yan nervously. Luo Yan's face was expressionless. Before we set off, young master specially gave this thing to me for safekeeping. Originally, I wanted to return to the Nan family directly after killing Rong Xiu and Sheng Guanyu. The elders fell silent. They looked at each other with their eyes and nose. In fact, they didn't believe Luo Yan's words. The flowing cloud flying diagram had a very high status in the Nan family. It had always been safeguarded by the patriarch. This time, it was likely that the patriarch had secretly given the item to the eldest young master to increase his leverage. Even if he couldn't win, he could escape. Nan Yuxing should know the importance of this treasure. Why would he give it to Luo Yan for no reason? It was obvious that he could use it himself and it could even protect his own life. But at this time, these questions were obviously unsolvable. Swoosh! Luo Yan waved his hand and the flowing cloud flying diagram quickly unfolded. Digression, there's the last update at 7 o'clock. Sorry, I'm trying my best to adjust these few days in February so that I can resume the update as soon as possible. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1905. A beam of brilliant light flew out from the crimson flowing clouds flying diagram. Then, the light slowly spread out. Everywhere it passed, the space froze. The light rippled like water, and without anyone noticing, it had already connected to the void on the other side. From afar, it looked like a door with light flowing and floating quietly. Luo Yan made up his mind and walked forward. As long as he could use the flowing clouds flying diagram to leave this place, everything else would be easy. His speed was very fast. With a single step, he stepped into the swaying waves. The surrounding spatial turbulence seemed to have been isolated at this moment. Luo Yan pursed his lips and calmed down. The few elders standing behind him also became slightly excited when they saw this situation. The flowing clouds flying diagram was indeed worthy of its reputation. It seemed that they could really leave this place with this thing. However, at this moment, a sword aura suddenly broke through the air. Luo Yan knew that something was wrong and could only dodge. The half of his leg that had just stepped into the flowing clouds flying diagram was forced to withdraw again. Chi! A sharp and cold aura flashed in front of him. Luo Yan did not even have time to set up a barrier in front of him and a deep wound had already appeared on his face. A stinging pain came. Luo Yan's heart beat violently, almost jumping out of his chest. If his reaction had been half a second slower, then this sword chi might have sliced off his head. After the shock, there was a monstrous anger. He raised his head and looked at Chu Luyue with hatred. She could not even protect herself, but she still had the mood to attack them. Sheng Guanyu. If you want to die, no one will stop you. Don't drag everyone down with you. Luo Yan shouted in a deep voice. The deep and cold voice spread far and wide in the sky. Chu Liyue's lips curled into an extremely cold smile. Luo Yan, I can't agree with your words. From the beginning to the end, I have never thought of dying. I just don't want to see the person who harmed me live well. You. Luo Yan was furious and was about to refute when a strange voice suddenly sounded in his ears. He turned his head and his eyes widened in shock. Unknowingly, a layer of reddish gold flames had covered the flowing cloud flying diagram. At this moment, it was burning brightly. Under the influence of the flames, the spreading layer of light gradually dimmed. That was the space leading to the exit, which was gradually being sealed. Luo Yan almost couldn't breathe. This woman is so ruthless. She was the one who caused the current situation, yet she didn't allow anyone to leave. She was really crazy. However, at the same time, a deeper question suddenly appeared in his mind. The flowing cloud flying diagram was a genuine venerable artifact. Logically speaking, Chu Liuyue's strength alone should not have been able to deal any fatal damage to it. What's that? An elder behind him suddenly saw something and exclaimed in shock. Luo Yan followed his line of sight and saw that there seemed to be a transparent flame within the burning reddish-gold flames. The power of the 2 layers of pressure was far beyond their imagination. This is the karmic fire of the heavenly square cauldron. Luo Yan was experienced and knowledgeable, so he quickly recognized the origin of the transparent flame. When he thought of this, his heart instantly sank. The flowing cloud flying diagram was actually one of the 10 great divine artifacts. However, compared to the heavenly square cauldron, it was still slightly inferior. After all, it was not used for battle. To put it bluntly, it was a trump card used to escape and save one's life. However, the heavenly square cauldron was different. At this moment, the power of both sides was intertwined, and the difference was immediately apparent. What is she trying to do? Luo Yan's heart was filled with hatred. However, Chu Liuyue's attention did not seem to be on this side anymore. She kept the red cloud sword in her hand and held the black shield with both hands. Most of the rust on it had already peeled off, and the heavy pressure was almost suffocating her. The lustrous glow enveloped it, and the engravings on it were faintly discernible. Its weight was increasing at an unimaginable speed, so much so that Chu Liyue could no longer hold the shield with one hand. She had to use both hands. Vigorous force continuously surged out from her dantian and into her limbs and bones. The force was burning wildly. Fine beads of sweat continuously appeared on her full and smooth forehead. Her face grew paler and paler, and only her pair of dark eyes seemed to be burning with flames. The sky had almost completely collapsed, and the ground was filled with ravines. Everywhere was filled with burning flames. At a glance, it was like purgatory. Chu Liyue took a deep breath and held her breath. The buzzing sound from the black shield reverberated in her ears, almost causing the force in her body to boil. On the other side, the people of Ink Sword sect were also in a terrible situation. Chu Liyue had forcefully mobilized the Tianlei to bombard them, and each strike was fatal. The people of Ink Sword sect had already depleted their strength and spirit due to the blood sacrifice formation. How could they withstand such a terrifying attack now? After a series of attacks, more than half of Ink Sword sect was dead or injured. The huge blood sacrifice formation also started to churn violently. Inch by inch. Mo Yun knew that there was nothing he could do. His body trembled, and his heart was filled with resentment. Boom! Finally, the blood sacrifice formation completely collapsed. The people of Ink Sword sect standing at the edge could not escape in time, and were all swallowed by the violent blood qi and energy. Mo Yun also suffered a great impact, and his body flew backward. Finally, his eyes were completely filled with a scarlet color. Just when everyone thought that he was done for, they suddenly saw him forcefully stabilize his body. The next moment, he looked at Chu Liyue. "Shangguanyu, you forced me to do it this time." His cold and gloomy voice was filled with a violent and cold-killing intent. At the same time, a totem suddenly flashed between his eyebrows. Chu Liyue looked up, and her eyes were instantly covered with a thick layer of frost. She could not be more familiar with that totem. Black Demon Cave. The so-called Ink Sword sect clearly had an extremely close relationship with Black Demon Cave. Black Demon Cave sent you here. Mo Yun sneered. Mo Yun sneered, but he didn't reply as he quickly ran toward Chu Liyue. The surrounding heaven and earth energy suddenly gathered toward him like crazy. In just a few breaths' time, his strength had recovered to the peak of Supreme God. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1906. After letting go of his last line, Mo Yun no longer had any scruples as he frantically devoured the surrounding energy to forcefully raise his own strength. Seeing that Black Sword sect was unreliable, he could only rely on himself. Even though the sect leader had repeatedly warned him to be careful and not reveal his identity unless it was absolutely necessary. But now, he had no other choice. If this went on, what awaited him was only death. Today, even if he were to die, he would definitely drag these people down with him. However, before Mo Yun could reach Chu Luyue, he was stopped by someone. A tall and slender figure broke through the air and blocked Mo Yun's path in the blink of an eye. It was Rong Xiu. Looking at that noble and devilish face, Mo Yun's heart was filled with hatred. Even at this time, this man's expression was still so calm and composed. It was as if there was nothing in this world that could make him nervous or fearful. The more he was like this, the more intense the emotions in Mo Yun's heart became. Based on what? Based on what, after this battle, those from Black Sword sect were either dead or injured while these people on the other side were not affected at all? Rong Xiu. You are no match for me. Mo Yun shouted sternly. At this point, Mo Yun could see that Peach Blossom Cove was about to be completely destroyed. Everything that they had spent countless manpower and resources to prepare in the past 2 years would all turn to nothing. Even the countless cultivators here would have to pay with their lives. Mo Yun naturally did not care about the lives of those people, but he cared about himself. At this time, he had already used a secret technique to forcefully recover and raise his strength. But in the face of the collapsing void and the rampant turbulence, he still felt helpless. And all of this was Chu Liyue's fault. If she had not summoned so many flames, if she had not forcefully controlled the Tianlei, if she had not, at this time, Mo Yun had forgotten that the Nan family and Black Sword sect were the first to act. If they had not insisted on pursuing Chu Luyue and the rest and paid a huge price for it, things would not have turned out this way. However, a person like him would never reflect on himself. Therefore, he still blamed all his resentment on Chu Luyue and the others. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. Oh. It seemed that the Black Demon Cave had not learned their lesson. His tone was light, and there was even a slight smile on his lips. His entire person looked elegant, noble, and elegant. However, when Mo Yun looked at that pair of eyes that were as deep as a pool, he suddenly quivered. He suddenly recalled a rumor from a few years ago. It was not accurate to say that it was a rumor, because that incident had really happened. However, he had never personally experienced it and had only heard about it from others. It was said that a few years ago, Rong Xiu had gone to the Black Demon Cave alone and directly attacked their lair. The Black Demon Cave suffered heavy losses in that battle. Not long after that incident, they even chose to live in seclusion. Although Mo Yun knew that the reason why the sect leader had made such a choice was not entirely because of Rong Xiu, he had to admit that these matters had a significant impact on each other. Especially, at that time, Rong Xiu had indeed killed many people from the Black Demon Cave. Among them, there was no lack of people of high status and power. Mo Yun happened to be out at that time and had just avoided this fierce battle. Therefore, many details about that battle were heard from his fellow sect members one after another. This matter was almost a taboo in the Black Demon Cave. Many people were still afraid when they mentioned the scene of that man killing his way into the Black Demon Cave alone. Mo Yun had not seen Rong Xiu with his own eyes. Otherwise, he would not have known the identities of Rong Xiu and Chu Luyue only after the Nan family came to interrogate him. Because he had not personally experienced it, he had always maintained some doubts about these claims. Even after knowing Rong Xiu's identity, his first thought was to kill him. Until now, he and Rong Xiu faced each other face to face. When he met the man's cold and indifferent eyes, he suddenly remembered all the things he had heard before. Rong Xiu, he really had great strength. Mo Yun's throat was a little tight. He was not stupid. On the contrary, in most cases, he was very astute and intelligent. Otherwise, the higher-ups would not have sent him here to establish the Black Sword sect and be in charge of many things here. He intuitively felt a fatal danger. And this danger came from Rong Xiu. Qi. Rong Xiu gently raised his wrist, and a cluster of golden flames gushed out from his palm. Scorching, burning. At the same time, the incomparably wild energy in the surroundings began to obediently surge towards his flames. Including the energy that was rushing towards Mo Yun, it was forcibly snatched away halfway. Mo Yun's face was ashen, but his heart was uneasy. From this move alone, he could tell that Rong Xiu's strength was not inferior to his, and was even stronger. Could not go head to head with Rong Xiu. Mo Yun made a prompt decision, and with a sidestep, he planned to go around Rong Xiu and attack Chu Lu at first. However, how would Rong Xiu give him this chance? Swoosh! His slender and well-proportioned fingers waved gently. The incomparably bright golden flames transformed into a long whip, and went straight towards Mo Yun. Before Mo Yun could escape, he felt a golden light flash in front of his eyes. Then, a burning pain came from his ankle. He looked down in panic, and saw that one of his calves had been tightly bound by the flames. The blazing flames burned fiercely, and in the blink of an eye, his trousers had turned into ashes. The intense burning pain came quickly. Mo Yun's face turned pale. He was a god expert, and ordinary flames could not get close to him. But Rong Xiu's fire was also very powerful. Wrapping around his ankle was not the most important thing. What made Mo Yun's heart tremble the most was that after the flame wrapped around him, the force in his body seemed to have been suppressed and sealed by some kind of power. It could not be mobilized at all. Without being able to use force, no matter how powerful a cultivator was, he could not unleash his strength. Mo Yun was shocked and furious. Wasn't Rong Xiu also a god like him? But why was the difference in strength between the two of them so great? In comparison, Rong Xiu could practically crush him easily. Just as Mo Yun was thinking about this question, Rong Xiu had already lashed out with his whip. Smack! Mo Yun's body flew out uncontrollably. He crashed heavily on a mountain peak. Bam! Rumble. Accompanied by these two sounds, that mountain peak actually collapsed directly after receiving this powerful impact. Countless huge rocks rolled down. Mo Yun's body was drowned in it very quickly. Rong Xiu's eyes were cold. Don't delay my violators, this is the consequence. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1907. A cold and deep voice spread between heaven and earth, landing clearly in everyone's ears. The people of Black Sword sect were basically all dead. As for the people of Nan family, after hearing this, they felt that it was extremely ear-piercing. These words were clearly meant for them to hear. It was fine if Rong Xiu did not make a move, but once he did, he used a killing move right away. He was killing the chicken to warn the monkey. Luo Yan was filled with rage as he looked at the flowing cloud flying diagram that was still burning in front of him. The flowing cloud flying diagram was a venerable divine weapon and would not be damaged easily. Therefore, he was not worried that Chu Liuyue's flames would destroy it. However, he knew very well that with Chu Liuyue's interference, they would definitely not be able to use the flowing cloud flying diagram to leave this place. The space in all directions was crazily squeezing towards the center. If this continued, the entire Peach Blossom dock would completely collapse before long. I'm afraid we won't be able to get out. The expressions of the elders turned extremely ugly. Before they came, they had never expected things to develop to this stage. Putting aside Nan Yuxing's death, all of them would probably be buried here as well. Even Mo Yun is not a match for Rong Xiu, then this was not to say that they were weaker than Mo Yun. It was just that when Mo Yun attacked earlier, the strength that he displayed was already extremely strong. Moreover, he went with great determination at that time, almost cutting off all means of retreat. Even so, he only managed to exchange one move with Rong Xiu. How good would the situation be for the rest of them? I think Rong Xiu's strength has clearly surpassed that of an ordinary venerable god. An elder gritted his teeth and said. But his aura is indeed that of a venerable god, another elder said hesitantly. Perhaps, he borrowed some external power. The elders had different opinions. However, they also knew that it was useless even if they knew this at this time. Luo Yan suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. Inch by inch, the ground collapsed and large black holes spread out. It was like a giant beast opening its bloody mouth to devour everything. Countless surging dark clouds had already been devoured by now. Only a few strands of Tianlei were still wandering around. It was Tianlei, who had been summoned by the blood sacrifice array. Before all of them landed, the blood sacrifice array had already collapsed. All that was left were the Tianlei, which wandered about in the sky uncontrollably. At this moment, as if affected by the spatial compression, the Tianlei began to converge towards the center. What was even more surprising was that they seemed to be merging with each other. The most important thing was that they were gathered in the air above Chu Liuyue's head. Looking at this scene, Luo Yan suddenly muttered. So what if you're a venerable god? Can he compete with the heavenly Tao? The elders were stunned when they heard this. Heavenly Tao? What did he mean by that? They looked at each other and subconsciously followed Luo Yan's line of sight. The wind howled, and the energy was rampant. Everything looked the same. However, Tianlei in the sky was converging and merging. A dazzling light suddenly surged out from within. The elders all sucked in a breath of cold air. That was God-destroying tribulation. As the name suggested, the God-destroying tribulation was a heavenly tribulation used to destroy a venerable god. Legend had it that the God-destroying tribulation was dazzling and was born from the heavenly Tao. It was extremely powerful. Whenever it descended, it would be a calamity that could destroy the world. However, the God-destroying tribulation was extremely rare. In the world of divine ruins, there might not be a single person who could summon it in 1,000 years. Therefore, most people had only heard of it in rumors and did not have a deep understanding of it. In their opinion, this was indeed a phenomenon that only existed in ancient books. Therefore, when this God-destroying tribulation appeared, even Luo Yan looked at it for a long time before he dared to confirm it. This was the legendary God-destroying tribulation. Moreover, the person who was going to destroy it was Chu Liyue. It's really the God-destroying tribulation. The elders were all dumbfounded, their faces filled with shock. But that's not right. Isn't the God-destroying tribulation something that only venerable gods can summon? Shangguanyu is the venerable god. How could it be Rongxiu who summoned it? No, it's Shangguanyu. Can't you see that the God-destroying tribulation is gathering above her head? Heavens! Is this really the God-destroying tribulation coming for her? How could a mere venerable god, could it be because of the mountain fire? The Nan family was not the only one who was puzzled. At the same time, countless cultivators who were watching the situation in Peach Blossom Dock were also stunned. Some of them had sharp eyes and immediately recognized that it was the God-destroying tribulation. The news quickly spread among the crowd. Everyone was stunned on the spot. They did not expect that Chu Liyue would summon a God-destroying tribulation at such a critical moment. This was one disaster after another. It's over. It's completely over this time. Countless people were filled with despair and had already given up. Mo Yun struggled out of the pile of rocks. His body was already covered in wounds. He did not have time to be resentful. He looked up at the sky and saw the God-destroying tribulation that was gathering. His eyes widened, and his body trembled. Once the deity-destroying tribulation descended, all of them would most likely die. He clenched his teeth, and a look of determination flashed in his eyes. Then, a cloud of black mist suddenly spread out from his body. The totem between his eyebrows became brighter and weirder. A vast and mighty aura descended from the sky. Chu Liyue looked up. The gorgeous Tianlei was still gathering power, and it would descend at any time to judge her. She clenched the black gambling token in her hand. What was this? How could it summon the god-destroying tribulation? Boom! Just as this thought flashed through her mind, the god-destroying tribulation had already descended. The biting cold aura instantly cut countless wounds on Chu Liuyue's body. However, at this moment, the sound of a zither rang out from within her body. Digression: 6.0 Clock mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.